Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for May 16th, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order. I'm going to need a mover and a seconder to open the meeting. I can get moved by Member Paquette, seconded by Member Foisey. And that the meeting be open at 6:02 p.m. All in favor? It's carried. Adoption of the agenda. I'm going to need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Member Langlois, seconded by Member Roblowski. That the agenda presented to the Planning Advisory Committee dated the 16th day of May 2024 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Sorry. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Move into the adoption of previous minutes. Moved by Member, looking around the table, new mover, Roblowski, thank you. Seconded by Member Paquette. That the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee dated December 11th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Questions or comments to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. Presentations and delegations. I don't believe we have any scheduled for this evening. Consent application, moving into consent application. 6A, there's a planning report for consent V1 2024 lot addition on Trunk Road. Perhaps I'll look to our planning administrator, Carr, if you'd like to speak to it.
A consent application was received from the Raymonds. They would like to put their close to 200-acre parcel into their son's property, which they severed to him in 1998.
What property is that? That the present property?
Actually, I got a little map up here, that's for you. The son lives here at 337. I'm sorry, this is as big as I can get it for you.
So that's part one?
Yes. Part one on the present severance from that time. Part two is here, which they severed in 1998. And the Reynolds live here, and they own this parcel and this parcel.
So who owns the middle one? Two.
Right.
It's
not,
we can't say who owns.
right.
Okay,
And that's not part of the severance. I'm not.
okay,
I'm aware just because the Boise's have approached us and already have given us some written letters. The Boise property is this 100-acre parcel abutting 337, as well as this one, the other 100, and the other 100 is.
so that's all Mr. and Mrs. Boise's property
This is the
behind.
Boise property. I believe
Yeah.
all the children of the late Mr. and Mrs.
That's right.
Boise.
They own the
own it.
first front acres.
And this is all, and this is the Renault property.
Which is separated by the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of,
Okay, and what is, I'm sorry, but what is is it all the remainder of the farmland going to the son?
Yes,
And they're just retaining,
the portion with the
okay,
home.
thank you.
The application, a proposed lot addition would be 225 meters of frontage. The depth is 2,000 meters and it's 77 hectares. The frontage is 110 meters, the depth is 130 meters, and the area of the property would be the 1.5 acres, or hectares, sorry, close to 3 acres. As I did say, in 1998 is when they did their last severance, when they did sever the last close two parcels out of the 200 acres. The severance does meet provincial policy statements for building strong and healthy communities, as well as wise use and management resources. And they are also in the secondary significance area of vital resources. However, it is secondary, not the primary area. It also meets the provincial policy statements for protecting public health and safety. It meets the intent of our official plan, both developments already currently have residential dwellings, and it is compatible with the land uses that are around them. The general development policies for land use compatibility, both developments will enhance an already established area, and will coexist with the existing development without causing adverse impact on surrounding property. The land use in that area is in the rural area. MDS does not apply as there's not anything within 750 meters. This is, as we discussed, there's second consent. This consent also meets the setbacks for all the property remaining, as well as the road frontage required for a consent. There is no environmental impact statement as there's no proposed buildings to come out of this consent. It's just a matter of transferring the property to their child. The zoning bylaw in the rural does permit the residential uses that are already existing. It does meet the minimum lot frontage, the minimum hectares, as well as the proposed dwellings that are on the severed lots. We have not heard any comment yet from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. And going back in the documents, it was mentioned that there is a section that's in the development constraint area. However, all the buildings that were put into the severance at that time are already built. It would not be a concern for the severance. The MTO had no comment as it's not in their area. And we did have comment from the public, from the abutting landowners located at 293 Trump Road, legally described as concession 9, lot 13, parcel 1435. The owners are Noel Foisey, Rita Foisey, Claude Foisey. They oppose the application because the survey line is under dispute. They have submitted a letter to us on May the 5th, and they're also here this evening to speak to it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee at this point?
She clarified,
Okay, and you said the voices are here to speak? as well?
Yes.
Okay, we'll be back to that.
Well, we're disputing it because this line here, he decided to come and survey it, so it's been surveyed from here. But they decided to start the survey at the front here, which I don't know how he was able to do that, but they started at the front here. My dad had a fence line here, which is a cow fence line. So they came in, whoever did the survey, it's Telec, they came in and there's a peg here, a survey peg that's been registered because obviously you just said the property's been registered. So this property was registered
In 98.
yeah, it doesn't matter, they know when it was registered. So there was a peg put here. My dad was alive at the time. And he said, I'm off by 5 feet. So when the surveyor came in, he decided they would take my dad's fence because my dad's no longer here. So he said, I can use a fence. I was running out the first line. Never heard of that before, but I guess I looked it up and you can do that. As long as both parties agreed on. But the Ramos weren't there at the time, which is, they've only taken that over, I think about 20 years ago. My dad died at 92, so he's been there all his life. So they came in here and they took my dad's fence and basically went like this on an angle. And they basically in here took all their fields that we had for probably 125 years. So I'm waiting on my surveyor to fight for this line and we'll probably end up in court. So that's why I'm opposing it, because now it's going to change people's hands. And if they would have used that front peg, I think that would have been where the property line is, but they're saying it's our fence line, which it's going to give them more frontage. So I don't know if they included that in your plan or not. I've never measured, I didn't ask my surveyor to measure it. So I don't know what they did there, but that's why we're opposing it, because I think it should be solved. The dispute should be solved before they're allowed to attach this and this. And to me, what they did is wrong, but we need to go to court to probably have to prove it, and we're willing to go to court, so.
Are you getting, you said right now you're getting a survey?
I have a survey, he's already looking into the information, so he's been over there in twice. So I'm just waiting for the results from him, and then we'll have to take it from there to go to court.
Was there a timeline from your surveyor?
No, they don't give timelines, so, and this guy, I know he's not in the rush, so I don't know what's gonna happen. And if it goes to court, I heard it could take up to 2 years, so.
Okay, thank you. That's your presentation.
Yeah, that's it,
Appreciate
yeah.
that. Any questions at this point? I guess mine is a procedural question. So even if this proceeds and the land does like we allow this to happen, can it be noted that there is an active dispute on the file? Because I mean, one is a dispute between landowners, but does that actually have to hold up the process of joining joining properties?
Good question.
It'd be a dispute between the surveyors. That
Right,
do the surveying, like I understand, like it's devastating for both parties, you know, like. It's the surveyor that surveys the lands, and if it's incorrect, I would feel that the surveyors would be the ones responsible for. If there was or was not correct information in the survey.
right.
This lot addition doesn't change any boundaries of the lot, you're just taking an existing lot and taking it from. The right-hand side to the left-hand side, so they're not changing any boundary, they're not creating a new lot, they're just adding it to another lot.
Right.
So again, that, they have to do a survey as part of this as well, so that survey would. They would also have their survey, so that would be 2 surveys and a land survey.
No, they're not surveying the back parts, he told me. They've gone as far as they did. They only did part of that survey line. They didn't even do the first 100 acres. So whatever they've done on their survey, they've only they're like 150 yards away from the back property. And that's what I was told by the survey and by him. They're not at the back peg, they tramped the fence and they didn't even use the front peg that was registered. And they didn't finish the line on that side, it's not complete to the back. They just basically stop 150 yards back.
So we'll often hear about disputes between landowners that this is my property, this is yours. It's irregardless if it changes, like if it gets, like, this would have no impact on the homeowner dispute, correct? On the land dispute?
Correct. There would be a survey, and I believe as part of the recommendation, and I don't, I haven't put through it. That you can, and as a condition, you can say that you want them to survey the entire parcel. So it's not just, you know, that where the frontage is, you could put a condition that they have to do a full survey of the property.
Because technically, maybe a whole survey isn't required to transfer.
Correct.
Because
Yes, because of the
against that.
transfer, yeah,
We wouldn't normally require a survey for
A
a
large-
100
yeah,
acre parcel.
that's right.
land. That we would not normally, because there are lots of records.
So I'm just wondering why we would impose that as opposed to, they will likely, if there's a legal dispute, go get it done anyways. If what you're doing is surveying your land and then you're gonna have a surveyor that has contradictory information to the other landowner. Like, the only way that they would be able to proceed, well, I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer, but you would like to think that they would need a survey to combat that, but. Like maybe I'm trying to figure out if I'm wrong, but I see it as 2 separate things. Right,
Yeah.
so allowing the sale to happen, or to join the lots. I don't see it as impacting what you're pursuing.
Okay, I just thought we put it in there though.
No, and that's
Because they
fair.
will change hands, even if it's son, it's still changing hands. It's not the same landowner.
Yeah, for sure, but again, even if it's a new landowner. When we have that happening in other, no, that's fair, but we have it happening in other lands, even after it changes hands, that they dispute what came up and what they thought they bought turned out not to be what they bought, and then it's settled in the courts, right? So I would just hate to hold up from our perspective, this land adjoining, if in fact. It's not really stopping anything from your perspective to continue to pursue, right? And
Yeah.
we have to be fair and just here for everybody is my thought, so. But I'll look to the committee if there's any other comments.
I have the same thought as you.
Anybody else before we call the?
The only comment I have is if there's any new structures going up, then they obviously have to meet the setbacks, and if that line changes, then it has to be surveyed prior to any building applications. Right? You can't rely on, well, you can rely on the existing registered survey, but if it does get, let's say, line shifts, then you no longer meet the setback, well, then we should at least address that during if there is any building permits coming in the future for that property.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think technically it would become legal non-conforming, right? So if it changes after the building, if the determined lot line, which is what we have in front of us now, is we have a determined lot line. I understand it's up for dispute or not.
No, that's,
Yeah.
we wanna use that registered lot
Right.
line, but the dispute is they wanna go over and use our fence line, that's a farm fence for cows.
Right,
Right, which, in the side part, it's like, it's going the opposite way, so it's going in the other way, so that's not part of this, so.
Mr. Boise, was it just something that you seen occurring when they came to do the rough plan of survey for this application?
I just wanted to make sure that this was not a new. Somebody trying to pull a fast one on us and added that 5 feet that's at the front part. I know the front property's been registered, but I wanted to make sure that that peg was not being moved over 5 feet. Because technically, I've already talked to people and surveyors, more than one. I've employed one, but I've talked to many. And technically, if we go to court, that is a registered survey to peg, so the chances are we will win in court. But according to the owner, he said differently, but. So. As long as the property is not changing and you're like, that. Peg is still there legally, haven't done anything, that's kind of why I came here to make sure that that wasn't happening. And I don't know about your setback, if they gain that 5 feet, what would happen, I never even really thought about that.
worst case scenario, building would be built 5 feet too close to the lot line if it never, so it would just become legal non-conforming.
One more question, Mr. Daly. We do have the registered plan of survey for the first consent in 1998.
Okay.
So what you're saying is that you agreed to the first time that peg was placed?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
110%.
Would it give you comfort if we were able to check the peg on the next survey, that it still is the
Those things,
same?
when my surveyor came in, he checked right from the top of the hill. So he didn't just check the one.
Okay,
So he started from line 3. Is that line 3 at the top?
yes,
Where the pit is?
Yeah.
Where the township building is?
yes.
Yep.
So they started from there and they pegged all the
Oh.
corner. So they did peg Dennis Ramo's house at the corner because he had a peg on the corner of his property. And they did peg the other guy and he pegged the corner. And from that corner, he pegged to our corner, which is the proper distance, but they're trying to trump it on that fence line,
Okay.
which to me should be completely. It shouldn't have happened. They should have just used that peg, but
I spoke to
it's pretty frustrating.
Yeah,
I understand.
I spoke to a surveyor and questioned that, and he said, quite often you can bring 2 surveyors in and they don't agree where the lot line is. But if the people that are requesting the survey, the Ramos, they're relying on their survey, then it would, and you disagree with that, then it would be up to you to provide a survey to dispute those lot lines. But he said not all surveyors agree with, they don't always come in the same place for the lot lines, so
That's not
that's possible too.
that's not what's happened here, though. This was Raymond has already detached that lot in 96, you said?
1998.
98, okay, so they've already registered that parcel.
Yeah.
There's already been a peg
Mhm.
assigned to that lot. Mike Simpson did it. I talked to Mike Simpson. He told me that he did speak to my dad back then. That my dad said that was his farm fence line, and my dad had measured from the top to the bottom with a measuring tape, and he told that was right distance. At the time, Mike Simpson felt that that was not an appropriate fence to use. So what he did, and that's what they do, they split the lines, the property evenly to the distance, and that's where he pegged it. So that register has been registered in 98. And Mr. Dennis Raymond and his wife signed off on it, saying that was the peg. That's the problem I have. 10 years later, on 2024, they say, no, that's not the peg line. This is the other peg line, which they came over. And technically, to me, he had no rights to come to the front line because he doesn't have a piece of property to the front. How he was able to tell his survey to take that front peg is beyond my doubt, because he owns the property behind his son right now. He doesn't own any property adjoint to the road. So why he went peg the road? I don't know how the survey guy could do that, because if you own this property here, you own this, and you own a little chunk over here, but you do not own, you shouldn't be able to go peg here. Your surveyor should have started back here. Because that's who you own. This has already been surveyed. That's a registered survey. So why didn't Mr. Telek come over here and run his line from there? Why did he go peg at the road? That's like 150 feet, which Dennis Raymond had no rights to go peg that because he has no property at the front. So that's my other question, that he was able to go peg something when he owns property only at the back. That's like me saying, you know what, you own property beside me, I'm gonna go peg 5 feet over on your fence. If you didn't put your fence on the line, I can take your fence 5 feet and I can take your property. That's basically what's happened there. And then when he came over, like I said, a couple of times, when he came over to the back, we're losing 65 feet of property. So I'm going to court.
Yeah, and unfortunately.
Oh, I know it
Yeah.
has nothing to do
Yeah,
with
yeah,
this.
that's
I
not
just wanted
something
to
we're-
clarify it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of find it weird that he did all of this, got it surveyed, and he's in here to reattach it, which the plan shows rightfully what he did is right there. But what he did to come and survey it, I don't know how he was able to even say to a surveyor, you can use that front peg at the front. Well, technically it's not his. He doesn't own property at the front. He's on the backside of his son's property. So the property survey that he started should have started behind his son's property.
Right.
Anyways, it's a done or a matter, right? So.
Okay, so, if there are no other. Frank, do you have anything else? That, no,
Sorry.
that's okay. What's that, $3? I need a mover and a seconder for the motion, if I could. Moved by. Roblowski. Seconded by. You seconder, put it on the table. All right, buckle up. So moved by member Roblowski, seconded by member Paquette. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee has reviewed consent application B1 2024, Raymond, and that the Planning Advisory Committee will defer the consent until the next meeting. Oh, no, that's the wrong one.
I gave you two choices.
Jeez. Right, so yeah, moved by member Roblowski, seconded by member Paquette, that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that consent application B1 2024, Dennis and Denise Raymond, be approved with the following conditions. One, that this approval applies to the transfer as applied, for which shows a lot addition from concession 10, lot 14, parcel 14276, and concession 9, lot 14, REM parcel 3885 NIP to concession 9 part lot 14 RP 36R 1055-9 part 1 parcel 28896 NIP zoned rural. 2, the following documents be provided. A, the original executed transfer deed, a duplicate original and 1 copy for our records. B, a copy of the survey plan deposited in the land titles office if required. C, an electronic copy of the survey emailed to planning@bonfieldtownship.com. D, a schedule describing the severed parcels attached to the transfer for approval purposes, excuse me. E, a schedule that provides a registerable legal description attached to the transfer for the retained land for approved purposes, if required. 3, if there is a forced road situation, a 20-meter road allowance or whatever amount is required for road purposes shall be transferred to the municipality at the owner's expense across the whole lot or parcel for which the severance was taken, and compensation shall be awarded as per the compensation grid for the transfer of forced roads. 4, that the building setbacks for all buildings must meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw for the retained and or severed lots, whichever are affected at the time of survey. 5, a fee of 5% in lieu of parkland dedication for each transfer document shall be deposited into the office of the clerk prior to the stamping of any transfer document regarding a subdivision or a consent for which each new lot. For the purpose of determining the amount of payment, the pay grid to determine payment of up to 5% in lieu of land to be conveyed to for park or other recreational purposes shall apply. 6, if any, all tax arrears must be paid prior to the stamping of the transfer documents for a new lot. And 7, the survey will represent the lot addition as well as retained land. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate that.
Just
Sorry,
like
Nick.
knowing the conditions, we're asking them to sever the entirety,
Okay.
just because it's a lot of legal lingo there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
You know
welcome.
what I'm saying?
I'm sure it'll be riveting.
It is riveting for sure.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry to go on.
Yeah. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, it's just been blab on. Have a good day, guys.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just, yeah, for this sketch, it was, like on some of them will hatch out the whole ownership because I kind of at first, seen it until you explained it. Because sometimes we'll put, the whole hatched area of all the ownership. And then I kind of thought you were talking about the middle part that was the Boise's concern, and I'm thinking, well, there's already a part on a plan, and I didn't realize the son had already owned.
Mhm. The
That
Rainbow
portion.
sketch was huge, 'cause they were trying to draw like the house, the sheds, so I made that sketch to accompany their sketch. So next time I'll hatch the
Yeah, it was just a little.
big part
confusing
and
of-
leave the little
of
part
who
open.
and What? Because the whole interpretation kind
Right.
of changes if what you thought.
Okay, moving on to item number 8 under other business. We have a report regarding prime agricultural technical report from J.L. Richards. I'll look through planning administrator Carr.
I have never learned so much about soil. Honestly, I read about soil for several weeks. And all the reports that come from OMAPRA and how we determine prime agricultural lands, et cetera. And actually, I found it interesting as well because one soil class is called Bancroft and I'm from Bancroft. Anyways, J.L. Richards conducted our agricultural land evaluation, and it's a study that's called the LES study to evaluate potential areas of prime agricultural land with the township. The purpose of the study was for the official plan which has regard to provincial interests listed under Section 2 of the Planning Act, is consistent with the policy statement issued under Section 3 of the Planning Act. Official plans as well as land use policies that are provided in the Planning Act must conform with provincial plans. You cannot conflict with them. So they were approached by OMAFRA believing that we had properties on the south side of 17 that could be indicative of prime agricultural lands. The study that they do is they go out and they just do like a visual study of the land and they figure out how they would map that. OMAFRA suggests that soil classes 1 to 3 and organics are considered high priority when looking at prime agricultural. Analysis was performed on the Bonfield parcels layers to identify the percentage of soil class 1 to 3 organics. Using MPAC and Agricultural Canada Annual Crop Inventory, ACI, was used to locate existing agricultural activity in Bonfield. GL Richards identified 5,280 hectares across 332 lots outside of the hamlet, containing 25% or greater amounts of class 1 to 3 organic soils. Majority of these soils were 2 and 3. The information was presented to the Planning Advisory Committee as part of the official plan review in December 2023. Concerns were raised by the committee members, especially co-chair Paquette. As in 1997, during the official plan review, the township had received a letter that stated that that the Ministry of Agriculture and Foods did not find that it was prime agricultural designation. Being a good lady, she still had the letter, and I attached it to our report as an appendix. I went online and I looked at mapping from 1986. In this mapping showed that there was orthohumic glycol soils that were non-clarious clay loam, silty clay, or clay lustrine materials, which represented moderately poor drainage conditions. Soils also showed to have agricultural capability of 4 WD, and 4 means the class of soil, W means excess water, and D means undesirable soil structure with low permeability. So basically that means when it rains, it's all wet on top for quite a while because it's not going to suck into the ground. Although in 1986, the mapping classified the soils of Bonfield to be poorly drained, technologies and methodologies have changed, and you're able to tile farms to drain fields of water. Bonfield has a record of 2 farm tiles within the municipality, one being on Rutherglen Line and the other being at the end of Development Road near Mount Pleasant Road. All of these tiles are actually identified in a mapping system because when a farmer does want to tile their fields, they approach the municipality to sign off on that document, and they're able to get money back from OMAFRA for tiling. The Agricultural Land Evaluation System and the Land Evaluation and Area Review are 2 recognized methodologies for informing the designation. So basically, I performed land evaluation and area review by going through mapping. It's a desktop exercise. OMAFRA's Prime Agricultural Area webpage explains that prime agricultural areas are not only areas where Canada Land Inventory classes 1 to 3 land predominate, but often also include associated classes 4 to 7 lands. It should be noted that organic soil is mapped and considered during an ALAS exercise. Organic soils can be productive for agricultural, particularly if improvements are undertaken, like the installation of tile drainage. When used for certain crops, such as certain vegetables that thrive in organic soil, the CLI agricultural capability mapping from Ontario GeoHub should be used as it provides the most current information. Additionally, prime agricultural areas include areas where there is local concentration of farms which exhibit characteristics of ongoing agriculture. The CLI-1 is the classification of climate and soil capability to produce common field crops, corn, soybeans, small grain, forages. I'll
That's
get
right.
the forages.
Every time you see it, that's right.
Right? I'm like, wait, you go to forage. In the CLI rating system, there are 7 classes in which were identified with the prime agricultural study provided from JL Richards, soil classes 1 to 7. The Ministry of Agricultural, Food and Rural Areas Affairs reported title, Use of Soil in Canada Land Inventory Information for Agricultural Land Use Planning, which is a document that you kind of use while you're on the GeoHub, so you can see what all of the legends mean. And it also further defines what the legends have to say. The 2 main components of a CLI are 1, the capability class, so your soil types 1 to 7, and then class 2 are subclasses. The capability class indicates the general capability of the soil for growing common field crops with the 7 capability classes. And the capability subclass indicates the primary type of limitation or hazard for growing common field crops. And I listed the capability classes as well as the subclasses. Municipal approaches to designations. Most municipalities with concentrations of prime agricultural land designate prime agricultural areas in their official plans. These municipalities must ensure the full meaning of prime agricultural areas as described and included in their designated area. So in southwestern Ontario, many municipalities designate all the land outside of their settlement area as prime agricultural. This reflects the widespread quality of the agricultural soil and prevalence of farming in the area. In other parts of the province, it is common for municipal official plans to both have prime agricultural areas and rural land designations. This usually means that the area outside the settlement area has a broader mix of prime agricultural land and lower capability land, which I believe is how the municipality fell into that letter that was given to us in 1997. In municipalities where the land meets the definition, a study may not be required. In areas with more diverse soils, a municipality usually starts the designation process, working with OMAFRA to conduct a study to identify candidate areas for prime agricultural, therefore the JL study. Size of prime agricultural areas. Prime areas are working landscapes where normal farm practices are promoted and protected. Normal farm practices may include activities that result in impacts such as noise, dust, vibration, smoke, flies, light, and odor, especially for pig farms. That may not be compatible with sensitive non-agricultural uses. Complaints and conflict between agricultural and non-agricultural uses can impair agricultural operations. Having large continuous areas for agriculture is essential for normal farm practices to occur with minimum disruption for the others' uses. Many farm operators need to move large, slow-moving farm equipment on roads to plant, cultivate, harvest, and transport crops. That can be done more dangerous and difficult for operators to work efficiently if the fields are distant, if the sensitive land uses or traffic issues exist. Some parts of the agri-food supply chain depend on a critical mass of primary agricultural in close proximity to remain viable. Example, to ensure sufficient feedstock for facilities such as large grain dryers, distribution centers, or food processors. For these reasons, provincial policy protects prime ag areas for non-agricultural uses and recommends that large continuous areas be reserved for agriculture. For the agricultural system in the greater Golden Horseshoe, OMAFRA identified prime agricultural areas as clusters of 250 acres and larger that have predominantly good soil. Consider the amount of land in the agriculture production and parcel fragmentation in the surrounding area. Smaller agricultural uses may not be prime agricultural areas unto themselves. They may be rural lands that, together with prime agricultural areas, help to create a continuous productive land base for agriculture. So you can see here, this is the map that JL Richards proposed as the ALES study. And I have to back up and got glasses on. You can see that the little pink areas, that's where they have identified there is crops growing. The yellow areas are for your forages, and for grazing. Being here for 15 or 16 years, and driving around often. We really have, most of our farmland is equestrian based. It's mostly horses, they need the fields, I know growing up on a farm, often generationally, we don't want to see a field grow up, so we continue to manage the field because there's so much hard work put into getting a field. So most of it is all either hay or straw for bedding and for feeding horses. Farm tax property in 2023 in the designated area between the two hamlets, Hamlet of Rutherglen and Hamlet of Bonfield. You can see that it is heavily farm tax property. However, you can have the farm tax for anything from a maple sugar farm to a cattle farm, cash crop. There's a multitude of criteria to match being able to get that farm tax break. I identified the map through our mapping system. And it's 2,624 hectare of soil and farm classes that J.L. Richards had indicated would be prime agricultural. I did it also the fragmentation of those properties, and as you can see from our GIS mapping of aerial property, there is considerable amount of fragmentation where you would see, for instance, down south, there would be thousands and thousands of acres of open field. You can see here that it is not indicative of being all 250 acre hectare parcels like it said in the study for the Golden Horseshoe. I also put up the map because I found it quite interesting that like the soil classes, like for instance, soil class number 3 is here in the dark blue. And you can see the exact same shape in red, which is a subclass, which means it's too wet. It doesn't absorb or drain properly. You can see with the class, the pink area is a class 4 soil. The subclass is F, which means infertile soils. It's not good for growing. So the subclasses are very, like you can see the colors match perfectly to the soil type to the subclass, which I believe is still indicative of the 1997 letter that was presented to the township at that time. I think the study may have been deeper than the study that was provided by J.L. Richards as into the subclasses. We may as well move on to Maple Road. Maple Road, they identified this corner here, which is Flangio Road up to Herchabees, where it turns into Herchabees, back. And then Webb's Road to the highway and back down across Maple Road. So Maple Road, this road here, Flangio and Webb's Road. As you can see there, it's also fragmented properties. There's a lot of trees, although in the agricultural study, they would say that is not a reason for not to designate prime ag. However, I think that there would be issues with prime ag in this area due to how much water there actually is. And once again, you can see the soil classes and the subclasses match again. So here's some class 3 soils. And then again, they're too wet as a subclass. And then the yellow is a class 2 soil. And it was 6 other values, but when I looked it up, it had drainage issues as well. And when you get all the maps together, sorry, I did this today. I didn't notice, but as you're doing the mapping, it brings up, when you click on the legend to what kind of soil classes there are, it'll show you the area that's inside the map. So the class 3 soils in the township is 21.34%. The class 2 soils are 18.21%. Class 1 is 9%. Class 4, and it continues. So we do have 20-something% of class 3 soils. However, everything else below, it just gets taken down. So the biggest soil class we have is the class 3, however, it's at 20% of the township. With the subclasses, 20% is an F, which is the infertile grounds. And 20% is W, which is too wet. And D is the drainage issue, 13%. Then it goes down by classification, subclass again. Also by the hamlet of Rutherglen, there is the MTO highway designation of interest. I don't know what consideration would be given if it was to be designated as prime ag. I don't know if it's the chicken and the egg. Did the MTO come before I don't know what that process would look like. However, that would be 340 hectares removed from the 2,250 hectares. So we kind of discussed all of the productive soils, the low degree of fragmentation. I'm just going to go to the summary. In using the criteria provided by OMAFRA, it is a municipality's obligation to preserve prime agricultural land as per the provincial policy statement. After investigating further the methodologies of the ALES study and observing the topography of the lands and the investigating of the soil classes and subclasses, it is understandable how the letter given to the township of Bonfield on April 15, 1997 from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food have facilitated that given the scattered nature of farms and the variable soil classes and the predominance of poor soil, the ministry would not require any strict policies to protect agricultural areas within Bonfield Township. Furthermore, it was provided for to consider agricultural practices during land planning through the use of the minimum distance separation formulae and policies, which has already strengthened in the years. Using compatibility land use strategies and implementing these strategies, the township shall reserve current agricultural practices for the purpose of grazing and foraging. Cash crops are not an indicative practice for the municipality, and there is no infrastructure in place to support an economy based on agricultural practices. The Rutherglen hamlet needs the support of land to facilitate our community, as trending patterns of rural living are evident in our population growth over the last several years. Furthermore, Rutherglen hamlet needs housing lands to support the official plans employment land designation in the vicinity. Therefore, the township of Bonfield does not support a prime agricultural zone. However, the proposed official plan does strengthen the practices to preserve the few farms we have and supports the provincial policy statement within the permitted uses of rural land and well thought out land severance policies.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, it's very dry
That
and
was,
very
no, it was
technical.
very detailed. So I appreciate your report, as I'm sure the committee does. Questions at this point?
Just the comments of
Yeah.
Holland Marsh,
Mhm.
which was a marsh, now prime agricultural land because of drainage and stuff.
Right.
So just keep that in mind.
Basically, the report is leaning towards not designating the areas as primary agricultural in Bonfield. Is that what I'm saying?
Right, so the report we received from Joe Richards that we needed to go and get another study done to examine prime agricultural land. When that report came back to us, it dramatically changed the map from what the previous designation used to be. Correct me if I go off on it. Obviously, the concerns we have is, while I understand that perhaps, technologies have changed and you can do some tiling, it doesn't make a ton of sense that we would be handcuffed to development away from, because of an arbitrary decision to now call it prime agricultural land, when really nothing has changed. It wasn't prime agricultural land. I don't think that it is now, which has been evidenced by the report we received today. And it wouldn't make sense to me to arbitrarily support that report that came to this committee, this committee, sorry,
Recommended to go to council.
recommended to go to NASA. So, what did I miss? Anything?
I would like to add, like the provincial
please.
policy statement. It still treats rural lands with agricultural intent. So you still want large parcels, you still want to support the farms that are here.
Absolutely.
So the intent of agricultural is still in the rural lands. It's just that if you designate it the prime agricultural, the word's prime. Then there's conditions like severance can't be over under 40 hectares. Generational families would not be able to sever property to give to their children if they wish. It puts a large hold on all these properties. And at the same time, the rural land designation would still support the current agricultural practices of the township.
Yeah, I think it would be fair to say for all of our millions of viewers that I'm sure is watching, that what hopefully they've also seen is in our draft official plan, which we have all gone over in detail. This committee is actually recommending stronger enforcements to ensure that we are maintaining our agricultural land that we currently have, that we want to make sure that we're respecting agricultural land. So it's not as though we are just throwing out the idea of needing agricultural land. We appreciate agricultural land. What we're saying is, don't handcuff us by arbitrarily changing the designation to prime agricultural land. And what we've seen is it's not. So
is it or isn't?
I don't believe by the subclasses of the soils it is. However, I believe at the end of the day, OMAFRA will tell us what's gonna happen. So this is kind of like our report, yeah. This is our report to get back to JL Richards to have that sit down with OMAFRA. This is basically our
pushback.
right, this is our evidence to support our claim as opposed to their claim.
And the next steps are that this report will be received from this committee, it will go to council, and then we will submit it back into JL Richards, they will give it back to OMAFRA. And I can say at the beginning, when we started to look at this, we were looking at the JL Richards report, we were excited that maybe we have prime ag. If you look at what happens up farther north, and they have prime agriculture in Lisbon, for instance, and like they've made an entire economy out of cash crops and what they can do. We don't have that here, and if we get those investments that come into the community, I mean, official plans are reviewed every 10 years, we've done every 20 years. And we may have enough interest that might happen at the next review. And the policies that we currently are, that we're proposing in the new official plan still protect the rural enough that there will still be large parcels of land remaining in that. What they said was the prime ag, but the soils 2 and 3. But when you get into the subclasses, they require a great deal of investment before they are able to be farmed.
And in looking at, when we used to look at where the prime farmland was, and where they mention here, where that subdivision is being built, that's one of the areas at one time I would have thought was prime farmland. And then when I see in your diagram here, and that's actually the first time I had a look at it, where the highway goes through and going down Trunk Road, they're covering, in there is where there was always considered to be prime farmland in there. That's where the farms were, the Roses farms. And when you see, I don't know when the road is going to go through, but it's certainly taking off the prime farmland. That's just my thoughts, because that's where we always thought where the farms were, mainly in Rutherglen and Blonfield over by Development Road, and that area would, fortunately, the road is not going to affect you, Eric, I don't think.
Okay, The roll always goes with the land, it's nice and flat.
Yeah,
So interesting, it's all, I find it all very interesting and to be part of it, so, and you've done a very good job with your research. Even still, I couldn't tell a little bucket of sand or see one or two of it. But it is very, I think it is very interesting once you start on it, eh?
Right, you kind of go down a couple squirrel holes, right? You start looking over here and then it takes you over here and then you start looking at combines.
yeah.
But anyways.
Okay, so I'm assuming you can still hear me. So what we have in front of us is a motion to accept the report and to recommend to council that this goes to council with the recommendation for council to accept the report as written. So if I can get a mover and a seconder, I will read that formally.
So that's the whole presentation that was.
Yeah.
You went through it, that's the report.
Yeah. That's what
More
we're
questions and answers.
Yeah, where do I fill my garden?
Brian,
You're all good.
right in that corner.
It's where I'm going, it ain't working.
I hear you on that, actually. Need a seconder.
Eric can do
Yep.
it, it's his turn.
Moved by, I'll wait for. Yeah, I'll help him out. This is weird.
Too late.
Oh, no, all right, well, the system would tell.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure my
I
son.
got allergies and I'm working on this, so.
Oh, yeah, it must be. So moved by member Langlois, seconded by member Foisey, whereas Jail Richards provided the planning advisory committee with a report regarding the designation of prime agricultural lands, and the planning administrator provided a technical report supporting the letter received from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food at the official plan review in 1997. Therefore, the Planning Advisory Committee recommends council to accept the report that will be presented to Jail Richards concerning the designation of prime agricultural lands within the official plan. All in favor? That's great. Thanks, Ed.
You're welcome.
Correspondence. We have a 9.8 correspondence, the proposed changes to the PPS 2023 and proposed changes to the Planning Act. Does anybody would like to speak to that?
Currently, there's an open window, so that comments can be made based on the proposed changes. So if the committee has any concerns, we could post those to the website where they are taking comment for the proposal of the PPS as well as the proposed Planning Act changes. It's almost difficult because there's so many changes every month or so. I have to actually print the Planning Act by the month because that's how many times it's changing.
When does the window close?
20th of May.
Monday.
I still got one day.
Yeah. Does the committee want to put any proposed comments on the table for discussion, or do you have any? Does staff have any that they would like the committee to consider? Seeing none. Sorry, you're all done?
Well, I just think that, you know, it's almost like the planning process is getting lost as we try to hurriedly build these homes. Just recently, we received a report what affordability is. Unfortunately, it wasn't before I put the agenda together. But like, for instance, to build a home, and they actually say the word Bonfield in this report. Someone would have to build a house and be able to sell it for like $290-something thousand to be considered affordable.
Mhm.
I don't know how anyone can build a home for 290,000 and sell it for that same price to be affordable. A bachelor apartment was around 900 for rent, and that's what they consider as affordable housing. So we can all hurry and get all these homes built. However, the market, people's wages, I don't think anything jives.
I agree.
Affordable too.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, part of the pressure is, and I 100% agree with you, and I'm not playing devil's advocate because I actually agree with devil's advocate, but the reality is, when there's a low supply of housing on the market, it throws the prices through the roof, right? So it's, I don't want the planning process to be lost as we are looking to build more houses. I'm not disputing that the province needs more housing, that we need more housing in the area. Absolutely, but I don't want to throw out all the good practices just for the sake of trying to build houses. And that said, we have to be able to get housing affordability back under control. So that has to happen with houses. So there's the two sides of that argument. So it's,
Slow and steady for Bonfield, I don't know.
yeah, well, we,
I think we're doing well, like
yeah,
abnormally well, considering like 10 years ago to today. With the same processes, however.
yeah. And that's why I think it's actually important that, you know, it's key when we're talking about our official plan, that we model our official plan after communities who have been successful in ensuring that smart subdivisions are built. We're not talking crazy sprawl, but like there is opportunities for subdivisions. If we can make sure that all of our land is in combined agricultural land, then we never mind about the subdivisions, we have no room left. But, you know, that is the smart growth that we should be, in my opinion, should be targeting to make sure that we have more housing for our families in Bonfield, and that's how we attract more people to Bonfield to enjoy the great community that we have. So that's why the official plan is so important, to make sure that we're setting the table for that to be able to happen. So
And also lately, we've been getting a lot of questions from our public, like, what can I do to my property so I can keep my parents? What can I do to my property because my kids can't afford to live it anywhere else?
absolutely.
And right now with our zoning, we do need to change some items so that we can get those moving forward smartly. But it's still discouraging to see. It almost looks like it's gonna come to a point where the children are looking after their parents and their kids all on the same piece of property.
Absolutely. You look to other parts of the world and other cultures, and I mean, you have
Right.
generational housing, right? I mean, they have.
Yeah,
no
normal, right?
generational
That's
living in a
normal.
house.
Well, it's
So-
normal for European countries that have same population of country and the size of, but their country the size of Southern Ontario, right? They have
Right.
40 million people. We have 40 million people in the second largest country in the world. We have the land,
Right,
so.
100%.
The families just don't have the cash.
Right?
We have the land.
Because I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I don't envy her trying to enter the housing market at any point soon. I mean, not that she's on that doorstep now, but it's not very far away, and I don't know if she does that on her own at this point, so.
When we talk about affordability, and I really don't want to bring up fees at all, like how is there a way that we could have incorporated to our official plan in what we're kind of promoting into affordable housing? Could we have looked at that more, like to incorporate what we want to do in property standards for people wanting to bring up their property for new windows and doors? And could we have looked at the fee schedule, for that, for permit costs, like say to put in windows, to upgrade your windows, like if for property standards, we're going to try to encourage that, I understand.
Well, absolutely. We have a property standards bylaw that we will be looking to enforce. For
Yeah,
sure, or we
yeah.
will.
It's just something that, sometimes council may wanna relook at that in what we're kind of promoting in the official plan. And some of those costs that have been approved in the fee schedule.
Yeah, and
Like I said, I didn't want to bring that up.
No, and anybody who's lucky enough to tune into the council meeting on Tuesday will understand it is the balance between, you know, also we have to try and keep our property taxes to some level of reasonability. So if we're subsidizing everything out of the general tax levy, so it costs money to inspect all of the permits. And so it is a chicken and egg, like it is a tough call to say, listen, of course we want people to invest in their property. Of course we want that to happen. But we also have to do that safely. We have to do that within code and we have to do that. So in order to ensure that that's happening, there's a cost to that from a municipality standpoint, which is why we're not looking, and the balance is, we're not looking to recover 100% of those costs, the hard costs to do that. Some of that will come onto the general tax base. But if we put it too much on the general tax base, then our taxes go up and then we don't look like an attractive community from that perspective, right? So it's all about balance, and that's why you've heard council say, or I've said, I think in the paper today, quoted as saying, we are looking to be in the middle of the pack. We don't need to lead. We're not looking to be the rock bottom cheapest because there is a cost to doing business. We're just trying to be fair, and I know that that's tough. Anytime you raise any fee, any taxes, doesn't matter what you do. Member Foisey will know, he was a member of council. Anytime you do any of that, you hear lots of feedback from people, because if they take the time to understand the finances of the municipality, it is a fine balancing act that we're walking and trying to do. So I appreciate the comment, though. I know where you're going.
It's not really the fees, it's the price of the windows.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing for sure.
But to make member Langlois maybe feel somewhat better, the Planning Act is changing how we develop land, so. They're looking at changing the minimum size requirements for a house. They're looking at changing how many houses can be on one property, how you can develop apartments within your home. So they are looking at allowing more room to be able to have more options to how you can get that.
It's just more like, I'm just talking about, you know, simple things like putting in a window that are new fees, right? We've never had those fees before.
There's been fees for permits, right?
So,
Or a new window to be put in.
You need a permit, yes.
whenever you improve, you
Okay,
need
yeah.
a permit.
Oh, yeah, we didn't change the reasons why you
Okay.
need a permit. Yeah, like you needed a permit to do that previously. Anything you needed a permit to do previously, you still need a permit to do.
Yes. If you change the size of your window.
Oh, I know you gotta
You
do
need a
that,
permit. You
yes,
need-
but
if
I'm
you're
talking about,
changing your window exact, you don't need a permit, there's no fee.
okay.
But if you're changing it, you're restructuring, you're changing the structure. of the
Structure
house,
house, yes,
you
I
need a
understand
permit,
that.
and that, there's always been a fee for a permit. You issue a permit.
Okay, and the same as putting an air conditioner in your
Yeah,
house.
on new builds, you got like.
New builds, but not your own home.
No, if you're putting air conditioning.
No, yeah, and I think that's,
Existing and stuff, but I don't
yeah.
wanna get into the
No, no,
debate
no.
on particular
No.
fees.
no,
But-
and I'm just saying sometimes that's what people misunderstand.
The best
Yeah.
thing to do is to call the building
Yeah.
department.
Yeah,
Do I need a permit? Because I was actually surprised on some things you do need a permit for. I was surprised
That's
on
what I
other
mean,
things
so-
you don't.
yeah,
Yeah, and honestly, it's not that it's a lot to digest it, so, but it is there, like, it is there, if somebody takes the opportunity to read, like, they would understand the difference between, you know. Needing a permit to change out a window for window versus you changing the structure of your house, right? So it is there now.
Mhm.
I can understand it's sometimes complicated to understand, but it's,
The building code is
Yeah.
like
oh, I know,
two things, like you have to download it in
Two
two
volumes.
separate, yeah,
my dad was a building
Oh.
inspector, so I know all of that.
right?
no, boy, right? Okay,
I don't know how they
So-
remember all of that.
we seem to have veered off a little, so I'll-
Okay, can I just add another
are you
question?
veering off? Are you veering off topic, your worship? I'm just asking, you call me to order, no, I'm just kidding, go ahead.
I just want to ask a question. When it says, proposed provincial policy statement changes. The require municipalities to undertake early engagement with Indigenous communities on land use planning. So is that the municipality or is that Crown Land or? How does the municipality?
So
come into
currently,
effect
we,
with that?
currently all of our planning applications go to our Indigenous communities. So we send them out to them for comment, especially with our land being on the lands
In
of,
the,
right?
in the territory, yeah.
Yes, so all applications go through the indigenous communities for their comment. However, I don't know what they mean by early engagement. We treat all the agencies just like we do our public, and we notify everyone on the same day for the notice period. So I don't know if they want us to start telling them sooner, or will they leave the notice period longer? I can't see it going to be longer when they're trying to hurry it up. But they are making some, I think, smart decisions. For instance, if someone puts in a minor variance, and nobody appeals it through the process of either a written submission or an oral submission, currently you still have to wait 20 more days after to say nobody appealed. However, if nobody followed the steps of putting in a written notice or a verbal notice, there's nobody followed the steps to appeal, so it makes kind of no sense. Why are we waiting 20 days when nobody cared? You know what I mean? Like, why do we have to do this 20-day notice? So I think they're gonna start shortening up those kind of processes.
And generally, on any grant application, on anything that the municipality is looking at doing, we send out letters to our indigenous communities. And we ask them if they have any interest in any sections of our communities. And I don't believe we've ever received anything back to say that there is something of significance. In a particular significance, I mean, it's almost significant, but they haven't told us. So if the engagement that we have with them, I think there's like open communication between the municipality and.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna need a mover and a seconder, with respect to, the planning advisory committee that we discussed the proposed changes. And that comments from the discussion we posted on the Health Station, website on behalf of the committee. Moved by member Willis. Where the planning advisory committee discussed the proposed changes. And that comments from the discussion will be posted to the consultation website on behalf of the committee. All in favor? I don't think there was many comments. What's wrong? That's not the face you made.
Spelling mistake.
We
Oh.
were talking when you were.
Oh, I see. Moving to unfinished business, second draft of the official plan review.
How should we do this?
Well, I would like you to just talk about the changes, and no, we're not gonna go through line
No,
by
this is
line.
just the changes here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about right on the other card. First of all, did anyone have a comment anyways? Like, do you want to go through the whole thing?
I just want to get an idea of what's happening right now. Is this gonna be the final commenting time slot that we have?
For
From,
us as a committee,
Yes.
then it'll go to council, then it goes out to public for input before anything happens by the council.
I thought Gail Richards was supposed to take the comments that we had in December and then consult back with us.
Yeah, so they have been either deleted or added, or so they're in here, and this is kind of like the index
Okay,
of what happened to the official plan, with also responses that we still need to answer them with. Would you want me to make this copy of that one?
Can you, I'd like you to run through it pretty quickly.
yeah,
Quickly.
I was just wondering,
I got
so
on my phone too.
where, so why do, like, our last meeting, we were gonna have the consultant come here.
Yes,
So just maybe you can give us a background why that got switched.
so
We
they
can't vote
couldn't
then.
show because they're in transit. They're had another meeting, and we've moved our meeting a few times, no offense, so that because of conferences, etc. So they were unable to fit our schedule to come this evening. However, they get to see it through Zoom or YouTube. So our comment, this is all that's remaining left to draft their second draft. Plus, there's lots of changes because the Planning Act has changed several times as well since we've reviewed the documents.
So do we have a new time schedule
I'm not from
made?
them.
They have not submitted a new schedule like that, no. We're well beyond those timelines.
Oh, I know that, but
Yeah.
I was wondering, has a timeline been presented to us yet?
We could get one for us.
No, but what we maybe could do, I mean, we have tonight and then it's gonna come to council before it goes out. And perhaps we could ask the CAO to come with a rough timeline as to consultations, when it'll open, when it will close, when we can maybe talk about that in the next council meeting, so that it's we have a reestablished rough schedule that we'll try and follow.
Just have a comment actually regarding the timeline, because if based on, we're gonna be submitting this agricultural technical report back to JL Richards. And if we, today. I guess what are we supposed to vote on these comments, right? So that basically closes the door and JL Richards we won't know the outcome of. The final, like, do we have a final draft that's gonna be submitted based on these comments?
Right.
Are we gonna have an opportunity is what I'm asking, or is this gonna be the final
This-
commenting?
This is, for the committee, this will be the final time, because we've already done an in-depth comment, right? So they just want clarification on a few things. And then they will go back and, I mean, they're still the experts on the plan, so they're still gonna come back and give us, okay, here's what, here's the final document.
Mhm.
And then we have to give 90 in sense of the timeline. Once that has been received and we send it to them, they will have everything finalized, that comes back. And then we submit that to the province. 90 days after they submit it to the province, we can do an open house for public comment. And then that stays open, it might be a week or two, but there'll be an open house in there, and then the province will come back and give us comments, but as soon as the public meeting and see what those comments will come back. Then there's another final copy that comes back to, I would imagine, council, so we can adopt it, so that we can get it to. We can get it implemented. And then it's implementing all the other policies that come with the official plan.
And it's just to see it a little,
Yeah,
We can work on that.
yeah, a tentative even,
Yeah.
just something.
Yeah, we'll have to add
Sure.
it, yeah, which-
yeah. So is the committee, I can't even look at our COO and ask this, is the committee? Would the committee be more comfortable that when the final comes back from post-public consultation, before it goes, we will have to line this up because I don't want to slow the process down.
Right.
That it can come to a planning advisory committee meeting, that we can have one final through, and then we could actually pass a motion to recommend to council.
Typically, once it goes to the ministry, we don't make more changes.
Yeah, that's what I like.
But it goes to the ministry, and then there's public comment.
Right, so there was a public open house in last April, like over a year ago.
Mhm.
And a lot of the feedback was taken in there. It should have gone to the ministry like shortly after that, and it didn't. So typically, once it goes to the ministry, that's our final, and that's what we're going back to the public meeting to tell
Present
them,
them.
present the official plan. So I think that's why this one's critical. So typically, because the ministry can come back and they can change it, but we typically can't change it once we send it to the ministry.
There are just very few things that are requiring a response. To be honest.
What I'm kind of concerned about is, we can say all we want, well, they had a chance to respond. But they have, the community had a chance to respond, and that's fine to say that and keep saying that, but they don't know the final outcome. Like, they don't know, in order to, come to council or whatever and say, I didn't realize that was even gonna go in. I'm gonna use a simple thing like you can't sleep in your bunkie. A simple thing like that. Like, the community doesn't know that that's in here.
But it's in
Well,
our existing.
yeah,
It'll be for like after council receives the draft plan. Then it goes public and they can look at it all they wish.
But
Yeah.
I just heard that they can't
Next to
comment.
your schedule, I don't like, in your schedule, how many public consultations did they outlined. So we've done the startup meeting, we've done the special meeting of council. We've done the background report, we've done the background review with PAC. The policy options and meeting and open house, that was done. So now we're at the draft OP. Just a year. And then there's early consultation with the MMAH, and then they'll make the revisions, then we have an open house. And then we finalize, and then it goes to the statutory public meeting, so there'll be one more open house, and then this, so they will get comment at that open house.
Okay,
And then there'll be the statutory meeting, which typically there are no changes after that meeting, and then it goes into the ministry for final approval.
so there is another open house before it's sent to him.
Yeah.
And one more open house, yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
that's,
I didn't know where we were on this, but the open house, there's the early consultation, so they're gonna send it in. We can't do, once they send it in, we have to wait 90 days before we can have our statutory public meeting.
yeah, because,
Gail Richards has said that we have one more meeting with the community for the official plan.
Right.
I wasn't here for the entire process, but because we asked them to come to this committee, like we've been trying to get them scheduled in. And they said like, this is outside of the RFP that they submitted. So they only have one meeting left with this committee for the official plan and one meeting left for the zoning. So we have to pay extra, so we budgeted to pay extra for them to come back to the committee to have the consultation with the committee. So that's where we are on the process.
And I would encourage anybody who's feeling frustrated as though they don't know information to stay engaged in the process. Like the process is very public, and we're always open to suggestions as to how to make things easier and more open. But I mean, technology has allowed us to record everything, to go live on YouTube. We have it on our website. We have a Facebook page that we put information on. It's fun. Like, I understand that people are frustrated when they think that they didn't have an opportunity to know. I gotta tell you, it's a bit frustrating to receive that feedback when in fact the process, by its very nature, legislatively, is actually very open and transparent. So that's the piece that I don't know how to engage people more than if they're busy with their daily lives and they choose not to tune in to our very riveting meetings or to engage and read the packages. It's unfortunate that they missed that opportunity, but that's the biggest opportunity for them to actually get engaged and be an informed citizenry, right?
I've been a citizen, and I'm telling you, being a committee member has opened my eyes so much of how much you have to pay attention. And I like to think that that I am engaged in that, and I didn't realize till I became a committee member how unengaged I was, or how much I didn't know what was
Absolutely.
going on.
Which is
So it's hard for the ordinary citizen to realize what's before them, especially this year. Like, it's hard.
Which is why we see the voter apathy, which is why we see like a very low voter turnout. Like, we as a democracy are lazy. Let's just be clear about that, right?
Well,
We
I'm
don't,
busy right now.
If
well,
it,
yeah,
if it doesn't directly affect me. See,
Yeah, but sometimes people don't even realize it doesn't.
it does,
affect
but
them.
it-
Yeah,
every single day. we're
Yeah.
making decisions
so I do
that
have some compassion for people, because even me, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I was so uninformed.
Yeah, and all we can do is put please out to the community to say, please engage more. We welcome it, we want it, but that's a two-way street. It means that they have to put the effort into, we're putting all the effort we can to try and be public and open. It's a two-way street. Like, we can't, like, we can lead a horse to water and you can't make them drink, I think is the saying. It's a two-way street. Like, people have to engage back and take that initiative to learn. And I don't know how else to make that
I
happen.
think sometimes we could do it, we have to put some on blame ourselves as well as committee members. Like, I didn't even know, there was no talk of a survey that used for posting in January at a planning committee meeting. Like, I
Well, that was
wasn't,
part of the
That was the-
strategic.
That was the strategic plan from council.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. And it was somebody else, whereas if we could have known, we assisted with the open house. You know, Sabrina made up flyers for us, we went to the liquor store, we went to, there's other means, we got a great big sign out there. Survey on website, you know, please. You know, to address that there is a little bit more that I feel we could do. I didn't know about the second survey either. I just happened to be looking on the website, so a lot is there. I didn't even know about, till Jason told me about your working committee. Like there's
So
some,
working committee.
that, you've made a recommendation to council for the short-term rentals and the
Our
trailers.
corporate services.
Yeah.
We've always, it's Public Works. We've always had a Public Works committee. And it usually meets monthly. If there's something to talk about, we
Yeah.
just turn that into a corporate services.
So did you see those notes on the short-term rentals in the corporate services meeting?
No, I haven't.
See, that's a planning, you know, he's
Well,
like,
it's not a
that's not-
bylaw. It's not through the.
It's not, yeah, it's not through planning, so.
no, it's not, but it's something we've discussed heavily. That
Right,
is of
yeah.
interest.
It's
Yeah.
not under the terms of reference. Sorry, I know I talk technical.
No.
But it's not under the terms of reference for this committee. I understand what you're saying about engaging the community members that's already are sitting on some of our committees, like such as the rec committee, such as the.
No, I
the
was just
committee.
saying, not knowing, I'm not saying that I need to be a part of it, that's not what I'm saying. At all, because that's your committee, it's just, I didn't know it even existed and that those things are discussed.
Right.
I didn't
And
know-
you as a committee member, so I think I understand.
Yeah,
So you as a
I'm not
committee member, you
criticizing
are
that I should be
engaged.
there,
Yeah.
it's just that I didn't even know it existed to look at that, because things could be happening there too. I didn't know that.
How, and we can talk about this offline, but like, I would like to know how, I mean, we're not a big media market. We don't
Mhm.
have like
Yeah.
news channels and our own newspapers and. Like, there's only so many vehicles to be able to get this out, so again, it's a two-way street, and I'm not saying that you're not engaged, but yes. So it really is, for me, like, it's a challenge to know, and I'm open to ideas, like, short of, you know, we're gonna knock on everybody's door and. Let them know, I mean, we send newsletters, we do, anyways, I'm open to suggestions and ideas, as I know the mayor is, as I know our CIO is. Open to suggestions as to how we can communicate better within the confines that we have, but I mean, we try and make everything, well, we do make everything happen, so.
And
And I know, you know, everybody now, they're so busy, busy with children, busy working. And
Busy with
I
parents.
find where people are not interested unless it directly affects them. And then they'll come to the council meeting, oh, they're gonna talk about it tonight. But if they don't think it directly affects them, they're not interested until they've missed it. And then, because certainly our staff has put out, they put out so many handouts, like in the mail, with things. When I wasn't involved in council, I was still on the planning and still on the police services board. But I was interested, I kept interested in and knew what was going on because I had word of mouth and I would look on the computer and I find it strange that people are having so much trouble getting on the website. Like why, when there's in the olden days, they got all the information, they come to the council meetings and that, and they get the information, so. I know what you're saying, you ponder, how do we get the information? We've got the computers, we've got the mail outs, we've got word of mouth and we have excellent staff here, if anybody calls. To get the information, but it's a bit frustrating on the people, on the staff, because they put a lot of information out, but it doesn't seem to make a difference.
I think it's just such a big year. It's a big year, the new official plans coming out, so there's so much changes,
Yeah.
so many changes. And the fee schedule, there, you know, there's so many changes, and so it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, that's true, like.
You know, for people, and I don't know if our big sign or have it at the dump on Saturday, did you complete your survey? Like, pardon me?
We did.
The dump, because one time I went to the dump, I did notice that,
We put posters at the landfill site for the
okay,
surveys for the town hall meeting. Yeah, we did.
oh, for the town hall meeting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
for surveys, we're trying to.
Needed
Maybe
it.
we need a.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
the sign, what's the Lions Club or something?
Just moved to the dump, I don't want to.
Sign.
Oh, the Lions Club?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
well, we should take.
Yeah.
Can we advertise on your side? Yeah, Lions Club.
Yeah, I think so I mean, we'll move on. I think
Yes.
the challenge is, we will never win, because all it takes is someone to say, I didn't know and you didn't try hard enough to give me the information, and I'm like, well, I fundamentally disagree with that statement when it's all as public as it is, right? So, I can't control what they decide to read. If they go to, what websites they decide to read, or which news articles or not that they decide to watch, I can't control that, right? So if they are prioritizing other things in their life over engaging with you're not wrong, very important things happen within the municipality, within government, affects our lives every single day.
Mhm.
I don't know why people don't engage more, to be honest.
Maybe a little in the newsletter, just a little thing that, this is, the meetings are this and this, agendas are out here. This is how you see it.
We're printing the current newsletter, so none of that will be in this one, but we can look at that.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
see if it helps.
Yes.
I don't know. I do read the newsletter, so I would.
Look at that.
I have another perspective on it though, but this is not something I agree with or condone, but a lot of the people I talked to basically lost, and this is not reflective of this community at all, but they've lost any kind of confidence in their government, especially when you look at, you know, the situation federally right now, what's happening, and it trickles down, and so you look at any community across all of Canada, what's happening with, you know, who's on the streets and everything from your banking situation, groceries. And that trickles down to, you know, provincially, you know, we can dissect every political party, so I'm not trying to be one-sided here, but it all starts at the very top, and I think that most people I talk to, and I say I'm dedicating time to, you know, to my local community and trying to, you know, look at what's happening, because I want to know from my, you know, I moved here and I'm very interested in Bonnetfield, I love this place actually. But a lot of people that have deep roots here have said, well, what's the point? I don't, you know, I've tried before, I've tried to talk, it's gonna go their way, right? Like, and again, this is just a comment, it's not a really complaint or anything, but like, I asked that one of the meetings during December, I said, well, if we don't agree with much of what was happening in this provincial guidelines, what's gonna happen if we as a community say, we're not in agreement with this, and we're not gonna implement it? Well, you know, it's not gonna be the case, because some way or another, they're just gonna have to find a way to make us implement. If the entire community, 90% of the community says, we're not doing this, provincial government is still gonna make you do it. One way or another, because they're gonna stop your funding. And so at the end of the day, a lot of people, you know, we think that maybe they're too busy, but really they just know what's going on from a different perspective. And again, like I'm not condoning this way of thinking. I'm just saying that a lot of the people that I have talked to take that approach, and they're aware of these meetings, because I tell them, I said, are you going to the open house? And they're like, no, there's no point. So that's another way of looking at it, right?
Will always be. And
Yeah.
It's not right or
the
wrong.
way it will always be.
Yeah, it's not right or wrong, but it's unfortunate, right? Because I know that a lot of these people would benefit from learning a little bit more, because I try to explain to them that it's not that easy. You can't just say, we're not doing it. Well, why aren't you doing it? Because some of it makes sense a lot of the time, even if I don't agree with it. There's some things that we read in the official plan, and I'm like, I don't want any part of this. But then when I read it, and I said, you know what, at the end of the day, it's covering the bases, and there's good intent in it. And so that's why I'm gonna okay a lot of these things, but some of them don't make sense, because there's a strategy that the government is doing to take ownership of a lot of things in our lives. Right?
Well, I mean, it's, when seatbelt laws came in, it was a big hoopla. When smoking, came in, it was a big hoopla. Don't tell me where I can and can't smoke. So government, yes, like that was a government overreach. Seatbelts was a government overreach according to many people, but ultimately, you know, that is the backbone of the democracy, and that's what ultimately keeps us safe. Do we get it right all the time? Heck, no, right? But I mean, and the wheels of government turn slowly, so it's hard to stay engaged, because sometimes people be like, holy smokers, like this is exhausting, because it's slow and it's arduous and it's detailed and it's. Thanks. Okay, it's not hard to get off topic here.
It's not slow for us though. Like we're running.
Okay, so I'm gonna need a mover and a seconder. And I'll read it. Well, it's about the second draft of the plan. I'll read it if I have a mover and a seconder.
We haven't even looked at it.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Anyway, to stay on topic.
We have to look at it.
Holy smokers, I guess I'm not cutting my grass tonight. Yeah.
To stay on topic, there are only there's only a few things in this column. It says needs response.
Right.
The other one is NA because A, it's not applicable. Or B, we have no choices because the provincial government said so.
You have to be concerned.
Right, that's the PDF. So one of them was the prime agricultural and MTO designated permit area. We just went through our presentation, so that response will be covered when we send it back to JL Richards. And the MTO designated area, that'll be sent to the MTO and they'll make their own comments in regards to that, which they will put into the plan. For instance, there's large setbacks with MTO property. So those should be in our official plan. So we already know what to tell our residents before they even start a process. For instance, like if you build something on the highway, it has to be X amount of meters away from the highway, which doesn't reflect that in our official plans. We're unable to educate our residents on that. Accessible, could you expand on what the township's intent for accessibility is here? We can update this for clarity on 1.3.
I think it, if I may,
Yes, please.
I think we intend to be AODA.
Right.
Compliant.
They are asking if we have a new strategic plan to reference for their vision.
What's that?
Working on
However,
it.
did you come to the conclusion of a vision statement?
Not one that we can put in you, yet.
Which one is that one?
2.1, the vision statement. Usually the vision statement would come from the strategic plan. We do have a strategic plan, it's just not updated yet.
We're working on updating that or creating.
Yeah.
So we would just respond with it, it'll be the same. Townhouses, why do we need to rezone? Should we define multiple attached? A lot of these, I just flipped the
What number are
page
you on?
over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
I went to backwards.
okay. 3.15. I'm just going to the ones that has require response. I think a lot of questions that we asked when we were together. A lot of the questions we asked when we were together as a committee often, I think, deserve to be asked for the zoning. I think we're all kind of new except for Member Paquette. Well, and actually, Member Foisey was on planning for quite a few years. Definitions, defined answers are in the zoning bylaw. Definitions are not found in official plans at all. And I did miss one right at the top, 3.12.1. What about apartments? We were asking about, what about apartments? I think it's a little construed here. I think we were asking if you could put an apartment above a industrial building or a commercial building. And they would also like to confirm if we would permit home occupations and home industry in apartments.
This came from, something that's, can you have, so home occupation is typically a service, you have it in your house. So there'd be hairdressing, accounting services. It's very minimal, very little traffic. Right now, they're only allowed in single family dwellings. And then home industries, are more things that are in accessory. Buildings like garages. So if you have a units in the garage, that type of thing, that would be a home industry. So
So do we want to permit home occupations and apartments
In industrial?
and industry?
So 3.11 now. My glasses, but single detached dwellings may be used in part for professional offices, occupations and small scale maintenance and service occupations. Catering mainly to the needs of the local residents and tourists, and home occupations and home industries shall not adversely impact the surrounding rural or residential character of the area in which they are located. 20. Home industry shall be permitted, limited to dry. I think they've added some words in here.
Like if it's more than 10,000 liters of water.
So it doesn't matter whether do we want them in apartments, and I'm not remember what the question.
I thought it depended on the, like, some home occupations, if they're doing graphic artist in their apartment, how's that gonna affect anybody else?
Yeah. So it could just be that we can just say that, because it just does say single family dwelling, so we can just say, or residential units could be for home occupation. Excuse me?
Yeah,
Within a residential unit,
But occupation only,
not an accessory,
oh, in an accessory, because you could have a,
right?
you could have a,
this is only, accessory is more of the home industry, right? So you
We're just
need
doing the
landlord
apartment, right?
information.
Sorry, you need what? Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
We're just asking if they could be
Landlord.
permitted in an
Oh,
apartment.
thank you, yeah, oh, that's a short you said.
could you use your garage? I happen to know somebody that just has their computer out in the garage and has a desk, it's heated garage, but it's just office stuff.
Currently in our zoning, you are permitted to do so as long as there's a residential dwelling before the garage was built.
Okay.
You are permitted a certain amount of area.
So that'd be
Outside.
occupation. Yeah, and industry is more like, there's noise, there's disturbing. More destructive of our neighborhood.
Non-compatible use.
Yes.
Right,
On 16, when you say non-conforming uses. Like, say with any, if someone got a license, I'm gonna drive you crazy, like you mentioned something on something else that you're gonna drive talking about it. If somebody got a license agreement to build a bunkie, you knew what we were building. And then all of a sudden now you are saying that you can't use a bunkie to sleep in. Would that be a non-conforming use?
So the simple answer is, what you got permission to do was legal at the time the municipality gave you permission to do it, and the municipality decides to change the rules, you would be legal non-conforming. So you would no longer be in compliance with,
I understand.
Existing, oh.
Yeah,
yeah.
Mm.
Did that answer?
Yeah.
Okay,
it wasn't that bad.
no.
yeah,
I'm just like a prior use, so
Prior legal use.
prior,
Prior
yeah,
legal.
you'll notice that I made sure that I said that.
With permission.
With permission, like appropriate legal use of whatever it is, right? So,
Or the use could never change again, the,
Yeah, if it
right,
was
and have to
legal
remain the
non-conforming.
exact same.
Yeah, what about somebody that there wasn't a bylaw and they are using it as a short-term rental prior to, is that a non-conforming use?
No.
Not
it isn't.
currently, because there's no law.
So bylaws and zoning bylaws are permissive, so
Yeah.
unless it's written in the zoning bylaw, it's not allowed, it's not legal. So in a zoning bylaw, if it's not in there, it's kind of like municipalities are creatures of the province. If the province doesn't specifically give us permission to do something, then we aren't allowed to do it. So it's the same as with the zoning, so unless it's in the zoning. And it's in the intent of the zoning, it's not a permitted legal use.
Townhouses, why do we need to rezone for townhouses and multiple attached? The definition has been included to refer to any building with 4 or more dwelling units. This enables a wide variety of housing types. And the zoning bylaw can provide for further restrictions. Multiple attached dwellings could be permitted outside of the hamlet settlement areas, and we could include policies to ensure private service suitability can be verified before permitting a higher density such as townhouses on private services. Please advise whether that is the township's intent.
So a townhouse, is that like 2 houses connected together? Is that-
More than 2.
It could be
More than
more than 2, yeah.
So they're saying it's 4.
Oh, yeah.
Thoughts?
So we're gonna let them happen? It permits a higher density with less,
So what's the main question there?
why do we need to rezone? Every time someone builds a multi-unit, a townhouse, et cetera, when it's really a resident, the use is still kind of there, right? So,
Cutting red tape.
Yeah, and I think that it's in the official plan, so I'm not sure, it's not, or it's not, it shouldn't be an official plan amendment, so we. Not a rezoning amendment, but I
right,
think in here.
Just a question of the septic and stuff. and,
it's like we would have to ensure
Setbacks
that
and septic.
setback. And valid,
5.
like you would want it in the hamlet areas, like keep mentioning actually that we should be really focusing on our hamlets and.
But what
Yeah,
about
okay, there.
your single family residence, and then all of a sudden, all around you. They're starting to build fourplexes or townhouses. By doing a rezoning, does that give them an opportunity then to object?
Yes,
So if we take away that red tape, you lose. If you're the single one that doesn't want to, then you've lost your. Then you've lost your ability to contest.
right.
Right.
And
And it
also saying just the new provincial, the new
Maybe
planning
you
act
do that
policies.
anyway.
I think they will also are indicating you can change your hamlet settlement areas, the lines without an official plan review.
They're not adopted yet, but these are.
That's one of those changes that they're proposing.
So it's whether or not do we want to cut red tape, but in cutting red tape, it can change the character of a neighborhood. Or do you want to keep it that you have to do the zoning, you have to do the amendment?
I'm thinking zoning, it's all lot specific, right? Because if you can have a lot that's large enough and you maintain that it's just residential. You can put a couple townhouses on top as long as you meet the code and also MTO and North Bay Mineral Conservation Authority, but if you rezone it. And someone just decides to put one lot, are you gonna rezone it back? Like you're creating another category that really there's other jurisdictions that would either allow it or not allow it to get built. Right? Like, for example, if you do have a townhouse and you have, let's say, 12 units. Well, you're not gonna make 12 driveways coming out onto the road, you're just gonna connect one laneway and then come out with one, because MTO doesn't wanna deal with that.
Right.
And also for septic, right? So if the lot doesn't accommodate it, it won't get built. Because of all these other jurisdictions, but really zoning it back this way or this way, I guess you could have a township, townhouse zone that you could also do freestanding adjacent to it, but. I don't see the need to rezone it, as long as it's residential.
Usually in the zoning bylaw, they would state where you can permit multiple dwellings? Or multi-residential dwellings?
We don't-
Yeah.
Yeah, our zoning bylaw doesn't designate multi-residential anywhere, because we don't have that much vacant land
Yeah,
in the community, in the hamlets. It allows
but right now,
space for,
does a residential lot allow for townhouse? Or will it in this new?
not for multi-res, no.
We would have to rezone.
So you do have to rezone it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess. that's
There's
the
your answer.
Yeah,
Okay.
Next one. 3.15. Adequate and affordable housing. Policy 3.16B is currently inconsistent with the policy. Provincial policy, which permits up to 2 units as of right in any designation. If the township confirm where you would prefer to permit 1, permit 2, or restrict AIUs.
Additional residential units.
Subject to requirements. We recommend greater density in the Hamilton settlement area and less so in the agricultural rural designation for consistency with the PPS. Note this would apply to permanent and seasonal residential uses. STRs will be regulated within other OP policies or municipal bylaws.
I'd say given all of the new provincial policies that are coming up.
We probably don't have a choice.
If we're inconsistent, I think, and we do allow duplexes on. As of right, on a residential lot,
Right,
duplexes, not somebody attached,
this way,
horizontal.
yes.
So in the rural area, I've noticed so many semis, so they're allowed
Duplexes.
outside, well, duplexes, I just in town call them
Yeah.
semis. We do allow them on rural properties
Right now, as of right, you can have two.
but you were saying you won't be able to in the new.
Yeah, so they're saying right now that this 3.16.1 is inconsistent with the policy, so do we want to specify where you can permit 1 or 2, or do we just want to say 2 of right is okay? 2 as a right, you can have a vacant lot and build 2 units as a right.
The
In
provincial,
rural,
it doesn't matter right now. The
Right.
provincial policy statement says we must allow 2 residences
Yeah.
on one land. Or 2 dwelling units, it's better to say it that way, I guess.
so if that's what it's saying.
But
then-
it's saying that we may be able to prefer where they occur. Within your official plan, right?
And where are we stating now, where we want them to occur?
0.
No, everywhere's allowed to have.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Everywhere.
Yes. I'm like, no, 0.
everywhere's allowed to have a duplex, but not additional dwelling unit,
Units,
Right,
right,
Not additional what, sorry?
dwelling unit.
well, you can have a secondary dwelling unit in a rural. These are zoning though, not OP.
Yeah.
You can have a secondary dwelling unit, which might be if you have one in your basement. Within the enclosed
building,
existing building, so no addition, if you. Like you can still have a secondary unit outside if you add an addition, but one entire wall has to touch the existing house.
You can't have another freestanding dwelling unit right now, or in the.
No, and that's not proposed in the PPS yet either. There can't be 2 freestanding units. On one lot right now.
So that's not being included in the proposal.
and the proposed changes, I think they want a 2+1. Like they'll permit you to have your own house, put an apartment in it, and then have a freestanding dwelling.
Yeah,
But we don't,
Additional.
yeah, so the official plan, and the official plan may allow for that, and then we still have to create policy
Right.
to say what that looks like. We have a housing summit coming up, so that's what we're looking at, how do we do that? We're a while away before we have those policies.
I don't think we should restrict it in the official plan. I think we should,
Wait for the zoning.
yeah, like I think.
And then
leave
we'll
it as
have
a
time to see what the province does.
Yeah, leave it as a possibility and then Just quite frankly, I mean, I actually really don't care if somebody has, as long as their septic system, like they have to go, as long as their setbacks, their septic supports it. I don't care if they build their mother-in-law granny suite 30 feet from their house, like. Doesn't matter to me.
That starts becoming complicated, in my opinion, when you start wanting to sell the other house, you can't, because you can't sever the property anymore, you don't have the road frontage, you can't sell only that house without the other.
It's a complete package. It's
Yeah,
one lot.
so do you wonder?
Absolutely. For
But
sure.
what's the price up more?
Yeah, it doesn't make it more complicated, it just
When
that's.
it comes to income property, right?
You allow a duplex right now without having to sever a property, right?
Right,
So that could be two separate families living there, so
Yeah.
you sell a property, say it's the same story, right? But this just allows you to have a, you know, if you have an old house and you don't wanna really. You know, connect a new one to it, because of just the integrity of it, you can create it, you know, build a new one, and put your in-laws in it.
Right, well, that's one ownership, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
no,
Your in-laws are paying you, not,
Yeah.
hopefully.
So when there's a, say if it's townhouse and it's 4+. Does it make any difference with the water system? The water supply to those units? Is it the owners of the building, the owners to keep that water supply?
yes.
Um,
So when we did our site plan control bylaw that we just passed at council, 6 weeks ago, maybe. So in the official plan, it designates all the properties that have potential for site plan controls, plus the discretion of council. So when we go into those situations, we develop site plan control agreements where you need to make sure there's enough water for the property. The ditching, the drainage, we try to think of everything that could possibly go wrong, and then we try to ensure that it can.
And
So we
like
do those.
testing and everything.
Yeah, we implement that through our site plan control agreements. I think that 3.15.2 is still in process. The short-term rental discussion, we're just getting that on either put away or brought out again. So we don't know yet.
What they decided upon is on the agenda of last night's meeting. Like your minutes from the committee.
The notes of the corporate services.
Yes,
This
corporate
actually is just
services.
saying that the OP will have policy that says that short-term rentals. The township will be able to make those policies.
Mhm. And I see the intent is to do one reading and then give the public a chance to.
Two readings.
I thought I read something that'll give them a chance to comment.
There will be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the public.
So typically what would happen in a council when there's contentious bylaws that are coming, or when there's been controversy that we know of, sometimes we don't know what will make,
What will be.
what will be. But typically what happens is there would be 1 and 2, the first and second reading. Because there, our procedure bylaw says there can be no amendment from a bylaw until after the second reading. So there would be the second reading, and then you could go up to the public, have the public have comment on it, and then it comes back for a third reading after that.
Okay. The next one for a response is about 3.24, which now it's 3.24 after the thing. Because we discussed about the tree cutting for development and how do we enforce others to plant the trees. And we were also discussing like fire prevention, just because we're in emergency management week. We learned about fire prevention activities like not having keeping trees so far from your house, etc. So how do we ensure that we keep our commercial tree plantations without having to say you need to remove trees?
So if I want to thin out my trees, do I need permission?
Almost on the official plan, they want you to replant again.
Okay.
Just like a line of trees. I guess I'll phone and ask for him.
I know that in some cities you do need a permit to cut trees. off your own
Ottawa.
property, yeah.
Yeah.
And we could do it.
So I'll phone ahead of time.
Yeah, I struggle with this one, to be honest. I mean,
We just had to have trees cut because they were dead. I actually had to go, I had a tree fall on me and I had to be rushed by my husband for a CAT scan.
oh my.
Because the top of the tree just,
Nothing.
yeah, so if you live in the bush, there's always a dead tree that for those reasons you have to cut down. And I thought for fire, they like you to have your house cleared
Absolutely.
of trees. So this, I know how yours,
Yeah,
I think that the CEO brought up a good point where if it is a large development, we can control that with site plan controls.
absolutely.
Smaller developments leave a smaller footprint. Perhaps we shouldn't be so stringent on what that footprint may look like when it comes to trees,
I concur.
yeah, the spruce bug.
right?
Mhm.
So we could just ask that it be designated with our site plan control areas. And at the end of the day, council has the discretion to make any area a site plan controlled area.
Any concerns?
Call Lance.
We don't have a tree canopy bylaw yet. The municipality is regulated to have a tree canopy bylaw, we do not have.
Yeah.
Cam, thoughts?
We're cutting trees.
No, I think it's so, it's so, you know. It's lot specific. Right, and I don't really know. You can't cover all your bases.
Just make sure you don't fell a tree in the neighbor's house. That's-
Preferably.
That's good, yeah.
You know, the Ottawa or the preservation of historical communities is a different story because they want that look, right? But we're talking about, you know, like,
Someone's got 100 acres of bush and.
oh yeah,
No.
I on my
Not
lot,
true.
on my lot, I can spend the next 4 or 5 summers cutting only deadwood, and I'll still won't even finish.
That's a wood lot.
Yeah, so,
We never cut a live tree down, hardly ever.
so I always just caution, like, you can't really put a blanket, you know,
agree.
bylaw in that, and just, I think it's just specific and say if you are gonna clear cut a lot, then you have to then replant and make it at least a certain percentage based on the landscape, because like we just spoke about it before, if you have bedrock, then we're not gonna ask the person, you say you need 20% trees or on that lot, right? The guy's like, are you kidding me? I just built a house on top of a Canadian shield, I don't have any planting surface, right?
Yeah, I concur.
4.15, secondary residential use to commercial industrial primary use. We asked, should we permit apartments or homes within the commercial zone and industrial zone for rental purposes? Learning more since then, it wouldn't be very compatible for residential purposes to be in the commercial or the industrial zone just because of noise, odor, dust, etc. However, it says that the policy is intended to permit housing for a store owner, an industrial operation staff. We cannot support permitting residential uses as a right in a commercial or industrial designation for land use compatibility reasons, unless it is a house on top of a commercial use in a mixed use zone. If the township has a specific property in mind to change the designation from commercial to industrially residential, we could discuss further. But I don't think we specifically have any
Yeah.
property in mind.
No, I think I brought this up because it was more, so if you have a quick way and you're building a building. And it's quick way, can you not have apartments on top of it? So right now, our vision plan says no. Our planning experts are saying, don't do it.
Yeah.
They would have to do an vision plan amendment, so it can be site specific to whatever's being built on that lot.
We'll just respond with what they said is what they're saying. We agree.
No.
You don't
It's
agree?
the opposite of, say, downtown North Bay, where they want apartments up above the storefront.
In our commercial zone, for instance, you're permitted to have a resident on a commercial building as long as it's attached to the building.
At the rear or.
Yeah, so it has to be an apartment, basically.
Mhm.
We do permit that in the commercial zone.
Not in industrial.
but not in the industrial. Four 4.15, need to have an area in the OP for industrial uses. Currently, we do not. We don't have an industrial zone.
Yeah, and but they're saying that our employment areas are the industrial and our
Right.
our rural areas. So we ask questions to clarify and then they're clarifying in here, but do we agree with what they're clarifying? Like our employment lands are for industrial. The rural area does have some in our zoning for industrial, agricultural, industrial.
They want us to have an industrial park.
No, we
Where
kind
to
of
go?
asked them.
Yeah.
We asked them as a committee. We
We've
took all the
still-
notes that we asked and talked about, and then we put it all back to them. So it took us 4 days, right?
And what did they say to that?
This is what they're saying
This is
to
what
it.
they're saying.
Yeah, and they did changes inside.
Yeah, we can leave it as they say.
Yeah. I think so too. Expansions to the settlement area, we would like to know. Like to look at this rather than hamlet specifically before any designation of prime A. There are particular provincial requirements that justify expanding a settlement boundary. Would we advise whether the township is interested in expanding the settlement boundaries? Background report findings, other lands needs analysis demonstrated that Brother Glen has approximately 16 hectare of vacant lot with residential potential. This indicates that there is sufficient land within the existing settlement boundary. 16 hectares. Divided by 2. Oh, 1. Right, so that's only 16 houses. Anyways. That's how I always think. I'm thinking out loud, like that's only 16 houses.
But since we asked this question, the proposed changes to the planning act may actually answer our own questions.
Right,
We don't know when those planning changes might come into effect, but they did say that we may be able to adjust the boundary slightly of a settlement area without going to an official plan amendment. Because right now we don't have numbers for our growth other than what they're saying. Like we have how many consents we've done, how many building permits we've done. We have projections from 3 different places on 3 different agencies on where we're going with population. But our background report doesn't support it, so we would have to redo the background report in order to support it. But the province is coming up to change it anyway.
and they may say you can do it whenever you wish.
So what they're even proposing is making like smaller lots, even in rural areas.
No, they're saying that we have 16.7 hectare of lands in the hamlets that could be
In the
developed
Brother
before it's,
Yeah.
right, instead of opening it.
But I mean, in general, the new planning,
PBS.
Oh,
yeah. Are they considering smaller lots? Like what's our minimum lot size right now?
1 hectare?
2, basically,
1 hectare.
about 2.5 acres
And
ish.
Even
unless-
in the hamlet, like say where we're on Green, the new subdivision.
The subdivisions have special agreements that allow for smaller lot sizes.
But they do studies, so in order to do a subdivision with a smaller lot, and that's policies already in our official plan. That you have to do the hydro D study, make sure there's enough water in the whole area of the subdivision. And you have to make sure that there's enough room for the septics and the water separations and everything, so those policies are already in there, I don't think we're proposing to change any of those.
Cause some of those houses, ooh, that's a small footprint. All you got is room for your house. You can't park your ATV.
Snowmobile, your boat. your-
they're small.
So if we just leave it alone. However, I think we have to be mindful in our future. How we plan our lands near the hamlet settlements. Like if we allow for a commercial, industrial, something to happen within our hamlet areas near there. Then we're basically tying our own hands to opening our hamlet areas as well.
Which I'm sure we wouldn't do, but boy, it would be nice to have that problem under this. This industry is looking at us,
That would be fantastic,
yeah,
and we have employment land, so that.
right? So we could leave that to the wayside. Show from current OP residential is current primary use apartments. There has been no change into permitted uses of the residential focus or community core focus areas. Could the township clarify if they would like to do something with those?
I think we asked if there was a change, they said, no, we didn't change anything from the current, so we could just leave it at current. I don't know.
Any other thoughts on that? Anybody still, is everyone still with us? Cause,
We're almost done.
yeah, here we go.
Each,
Almost done.
each in this, why do we take out semis and that? On page 33.
I think they're taking out like a lot of wording, like for instance.
We're just leaving as single detached dwellings, they took out duplex 33. I'm going,
This is in the agricultural area.
rural. Oh, agricultural uses to, Yeah.
This one, the 4.3. And these are some of the policies that are making it, so we don't have prime ag, but we're strengthening the protection of our agricultural area.
okay, so this is a scenario, okay.
Not a lot in not a lot in area is zone commercial, so what is the plan? I guess we're asking, we're still on the Hamlet. The lands in the community core and employment focus area designations on the OP include multiple zones within the zoning bylaw. Both designations also permit commercial uses. We have added in accordance with the implementing zoning bylaw. Like I said, a lot of our questions are going to be answered in their zoning bylaw. The background report states there is currently no vacant commercial use lands in Rutherglen. These would be in the designated employment focus area. The township may wish to increase the opportunity for commercial growth in Rutherglen by redesignated currently vacant land to employment focus area. If so, please indicate which properties may have the best potential for industrial or commercial use.
Or we can just
So-
leave it where it is.
No, I'm not, that was on 4.1,
Yeah, 4.1.2.2.
yeah,
That's the area around the old school and stuff.
Yes, that's the employment focus area. Currently in the town, in the hamlet of Bonfield, there's very limited commercial property.
One for sale.
Yeah. So we could leave.
so that was under commercial and industrial, 4.23.
There's no commercial zoning
34.
inside of the hamlet areas.
We just call it meaningful.
Yeah. But I don't think you can do much about it unless you tell them there's that.
4.22. No, 4.22.
Oh.
No, it's under the rural areas.
I guess we eat it up.
So it's intended to keep
You're-
their character. Okay,
4.22 residential, all of these, okay, next page 30, mine's 34, but yours is different, okay, that's why. So is this, what does that pertain to? What areas?
Land use designations.
the rural area, 4.2.
Yeah.
Or it refers to residential uses within the rural area. So development. I'm going to read the first one. The character of the rural area shall be maintained by permitting residential development, subject to the following provisions. Overnight accommodation is not permitted within the rural area except within a single detached dwelling, seasonal dwelling, or an additional residential unit. Short-term rental accommodations are subject to the general development policies of this plan, and development shall be subject to the minimum distance separation formula. So the minimum distance separation is when it's close to a farm. And then short-term rentals fall under the general policies for all the other, policies of the official plan. And then the overnight accommodation is not permitted within a rural area. So that's unless it's in your house, with whether it's your house or your cottage, or, if you have an additional residential unit. So that could be, you have a house, and then you have that secondary dwelling that's in your basement or attached to your building, your.
Basically, they're saying you can't sleep in your shed.
Yeah,
Or a bunkie. I'm gonna use that, or a nice little outbuilding. But
An
can I
outbuilding,
ask, why is that so restrictive? What are we trying to avoid? And is there another way of?
Dying from having it not built properly against
if
code.
you have a
having
fire,
open burns.
place and something burns
Yeah.
down, you don't, it's not built for human habitation.
We do permit sort of a bunkie in the residential limited services. Which is,
It's not called a
it's not
bunkie.
called bunkie, no.
What's it
It's like
called?
a guest cabin,
Yeah,
Oh,
like it's called.
okay.
yeah.
And all of those questions will be answered in the zoning bylaw. That's where the permitted uses fall underneath in the zoning bylaw. In the official plan, it doesn't really talk about that. It's more or less about land use and
These are high level policies.
Yeah.
And so we
the,
drove it down.
right, the zoning is the legal documentation.
So, I won't be allowed to tell my husband, you're sleeping out in the doghouse tonight.
Just don't tell anyone.
Unless the doghouse is up the code.
I should have said his garage.
Yeah,
It's, I mean, it's built to code, so I don't know why you couldn't sleep in it.
Yeah. Code to habitation and code to fix a car, are two different things, but yeah.
Yeah, because some garages are pretty nice, and
Mhm.
they're to code.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
code
a lot
to
of
habitation
times
that was different than code to, I get you though.
You know what
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's a.
Listen, I have
it's a
no
pretty nice
qualms if I
building.
got to sleep in the garage, I like my dog.
Yeah,
Built it just.
yeah,
Planning,
but here it tells you're not allowed, so you better not be.
oh no,
I think a lot of these are zoning instead. Then we clarified like is the country lot subdivision, if it's 5 per developer up to 10 times or 5 per developer twice. And then 5 per developer twice. So we're only permitting 2 country subdivisions per year of 5 units each. That's all we permit.
why the restriction?
Because you're not supposed to let the rural lands develop such as.
For
Instead of the hamlet areas, your
Right.
core residential area. So a
So,
5 house country lot estate is like, it's 5 2.5 acre parcels with 5 homes at once. So that way that a suburb is permitted to do a plan of subdivision, but it's only 5 lots. And
with
you're only allowed to do
five
that.
dwellings,
Right,
well, potentially 10 if the province allows 2 per.
right. 10
That's complicated.
10 dwellings
Are
adults
Yeah,
ever in 1 year.
okay. And. So I look at. We have a potential developer looking to create a subdivision within our, is that restricting that to happen within the area? When does it become not feasible for a developer to actually go through the cost of a subdivision? And only be able to put up 5 houses at a time? When are we turning that business away?
We're not. So I think if I understand this all correctly. The country lot, and it's in our existing official plan, so you can have a country lot, like an estate lot subdivision. We have 2 of those a year that allow for these parameters. But then we also have subdivision which are much larger than 5 units for 5 lots usually. And they. I think the country lot is going to be a much smaller development, requires much, maybe less study. But we're never gonna turn away a subdivision, so.
I don't think I understand the difference between a country lot and
Because they want you in the rural to only allow them kind of, this is our guide to say, we should only let them have a 5.
I get it,
subdivision.
but most of our land to build, we have. How many do we just say? We, like, not very many in Rutherglen, and we have less in Bonfield, in the hamlet.
So think of it as, okay, so if you have a lot, right now, if you wanna sever one lot, one property, one owner, you can sever it 3 times. And then it goes into your country lot, right? So you could, if you had 100 acres, you can sever it 3 + 1. And then if you, that's 4. And then what happens after 5? So the 5 can be the country lot. And then what if you want 20? So we can only have 2 5 lots, but it doesn't restrict us into the 20. So a 20 requires the hybrid, the traffic
subdivision,
plan.
Thank you,
The-
I'm with you.
Okay,
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So we can leave it as is. It doesn't restrict us enough that. The official plan, you know what I mean?
yeah, and we still protect the agricultural uses, but we're still allowing some of them to be divided,
Absolutely,
but not to the same extent as a full subdivision.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, that's good.
This one for 4.4.3 is just, again, with the short-term rentals. I just want to ensure that we have all this ready to go with this draft. How come?
Are we changing, are you on 4.3?
4.3? Yeah.
So have we, like, on record, I'm totally against that you can't sleep outside in your bunkie, and if there's some reason, then we should deal with the reason than restricting people. I find that's like over governing folks, whether they live in the rural or whether they live in recreational, like, so on record, I'm strictly for the people. Disagree that's gonna be a bylaw and in the official plan that you can't spend overnight.
Well, I think it's the municipalities. And this council's objective, we must keep our citizens' health and safety in mind. That's why there's building codes. That's why there's provisions on where you should be sleeping at night. Those kind of things, like I wouldn't think anyone's just gonna walk into your property and say, hey, what are you doing sleeping here? But we try not to allow those things to happen where someone's sleeping in a shed and calling it home. There's
Well,
no,
then we should rework, yeah, but if that happened, if that's the issue, that somebody was staying there permanently, can't there be wording to deal with the issue?
So how would you know if someone's there permanently or someone is just there for one night?
Because we're facing this exact situation right now, where they're saying they're not there all the time, and then what? No, I don't
So-
stay here permanently.
Yeah.
Okay,
So there's no water, there's no bathroom, there's no cooking facilities, it's just.
Have you ever been in
sleep.
an encampment?
It's just a sleeping area,
Yeah.
they have tents, you can sleep in a tent, but you can't sleep in your shed, so because you're not set up for.
But a lot of
For
people
people
are,
But then they're staying there for one night, or they're staying there permanently, and people are staying permanently. When it's not set up to be a permanent place, it's not a secondary unit.
but can't be you, instead, you know, if the language could change and be strong that it can't be used as a secondary unit, and it's only for family overflow or guest overflow.
So how would we police that and enforce it? I understand what you're saying. So how would you police it and enforce it?
But how are you gonna police and enforce it anyway?
by the official plan and
Just
zoning
saying
bylaws,
It's not allowed.
yes.
So if we say it's not allowed for one night or 2 nights, then we can say if it does happen, then we know. But how do you police how long they are or what is happening? So it goes back to the secondary or the additional residential units. So eventually there might be policy that allows for a standalone building. Let's call it a bunkie, and that standalone building would meet the building code, so it would have the appropriate size, which is like 200 square feet, 200 something square feet. It has water, it's hooked up to the septic, and it's made for human habitation.
Well, none of them, they're just an overnight, they weren't, most people, they're not going to go to the bathroom. Outside, usually they're attached to a residence and they come in your home. And they, wash their hands, they shower, they're using it for company.
Yeah.
Uh,
have to, I will.
That happens.
Yeah.
That absolutely happens right now. People just use it for their family and it's one night and the family can go into a
But
house.
now you're banning
Others-
them,
Others are using bunkies as permanent places.
so how can we satisfy both with language rather than, well, I think a lawyer could use the verbiage that like.
Like an occupiable dwelling is a good definition, where you have an occupancy permit from the building department.
Yeah, like
Maybe that
to
would
put
work.
it so,
So to have an occupancy permit, it has to be 200 square feet, it has to have water, it has to have.
Gina, I know exactly what you're saying. Do I really care if somebody builds a little thing that has a couple of bunk beds and their kids sleep out there on a Saturday night? It's a little fun activity. I really don't. But how do we do that safely within the municipality and be able to know that it's not turned into something more than that? Right?
it has to be in the wording, that gives you some,
Teeth and authority, but how do you talk about, like, now all of a sudden we're really up in somebody's business to be like, now we have to survey, like we're surveillance,
well, you're gonna have to surveillance anyway in order to enforce it. So if you, like,
Controls were good.
it just doesn't, to have it so right in here that a neighbor could all of a sudden, just because they don't like you or whatever reason, say, oh, I saw Gina and her grandkids sleeping out there, and then I've got the bylaw officer at my door. Like,
Yeah.
how silly
Yeah.
is that?
Hey, pal, you wanna just collect from us, collect tonight? or-
Yeah, you better.
So, listen, I hear you. If there is language that we can find that strikes that balance, I'm all for it. Cause again, grandkids on a Saturday night sleeping in a bunk bed after having a campfire after 5 PM with a permit. I'm all for it. Like, I have no qualms with that, but it's the challenge, right? So if we can find the
I
language.
was just trying to find out, it just seemed like overregulated, and then when people see things like that, that's what really stirs them up.
But that, like, I assume, like, what I'm describing is what you're talking about,
Yes,
right? You're trying to be
yes.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
like, that's what, or, my family comes and so you, need more space, or all of a sudden your family grows and you got kids and spouses.
So we do
and
have a
friends.
gas cabin in our
Yeah.
zoning, which doesn't require a kitchen
Kitchen.
or a washroom.
So that,
However, you can't have a kitchen or a washroom in your gas cabin.
and get
So they run to the
back
house just like that. However, it has a building permit and it's been deemed safe for occupancy.
Well, it doesn't need a building permit if it's 10 by 10.
You're not supposed to sleep in a 10 by 10. There's minimum requirements on the sides of bunkies that are built. Yeah.
And that's where we get into, so there are rules that allow for it, but how do you make sure people are building it to the rules? Because lots of people have bunkies that don't fit the rules. Let's say lots of people have bunkies.
Well,
Hypothetically.
well, I guess a lot of people will just say, prove that I didn't sleep. I was up all night chatting and we were in our ice shack. I
Right.
don't care. Like, it's
Right.
just,
I think the overall picture here is that nobody really cares if you use your summer bunkies, whatever, to have guests over, and I think. The big picture from, if you look at how it's all trickling down, is that. It's getting to a point where people are not here in Bonneville, but I actually know of people that actually have slept in their kids, they've moved their kids out because they've. they have no room in the house and their kids are actually sleeping in bunkies and walking into the back door to go pee and poo at night because they don't have enough room, right? And this is Canada right now. This is, so that, I agree with you. It's ridiculous. You can't say like, I can't sleep in my bunkie. Come on. Like, we're gonna have people over. You can sleep in a tent or you can sleep in a bunkie. What's safer? It's the same thing, right? But there are situations that people are sleeping in bunkies and wood sheds because they're putting tarps and they actually have homes. And then you go in the North Bay and there's homeless that have tarps over shanties as well. And we're not doing anything about that either, right? I don't mean to sidetrack the conversation, but it's just, I'm listening to it and thinking, I agree with all the sides here, right? Like I agree with I agree with all the sides.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and so I don't even know I don't know how to actually even come up with a solution other than the fact that I see why there's a need to say, you can't house people in bunkies because people will take that, and if you say, fine, you can have a bunkie in the property, then they're gonna say, okay, well, you know what, my brother-in-law's going through a divorce, I gotta stay somewhere, I don't have room, so he's gonna stay in the bunkie, and then, 2 months turns to 2 years, and all of a sudden, this guy's got the extension cords over the driveway, and, there's an extreme to everything, right? And, I think there's not even a fine line, it's just this gray water in between.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think there could be wording though.
If we can find it, awesome. If you
Yeah.
have time, and I know.
Right now, I don't.
Yeah, I know, but like,
No, I think there is like occupiable
Yeah,
dwelling,
bunkie for your grandkids
I need
after roasting a
occupants.
marshmallow outside.
But at some
the
stage,
bunkie just has to be a certain size,
Right.
right? It can't be a 10 by 10 shed, it has to be a certain size.
just
to meet
seems
the
weird.
guest cabin.
It just
rules.
seems weird, I can put a little tent out and put them in there and that tent, I mean, God forbid, could burn.
Absolutely,
But you're
Or
not gonna stay in
bed-
it all winter.
yeah, but then.
Well,
you
then
know
make
for
it
sure
summer
you're not
use,
living-
then make
Yeah.
it summer use.
Just saying, I'm just being the
Yeah.
devil's advocate. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna stay in the tent all
Yeah.
winter.
I mean, this is what this is for, right? Is to have the discussion and have a full kind of perspective on it, right? Like a tent, you hopefully, people live in for the winter.
Or the bear gets them.
Bear comes knocking.
Yeah,
You
like
can
I
use
don't
my
want,
house too.
well, no, well, they're
I
little
have bigger
seagulls,
doors.
Still
yeah.
get you when you go out.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's just,
I hear you. You're not wrong. I don't know.
I'm just
like,
thinking of normal use.
Right.
But I also can say that, what I did before, it's not fun if somebody starts an encampment on your property or the municipality property. I'd rather see them on their own property because it's not easy getting them off.
We're actually not legally allowed to move encampments
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, so I mean, you gotta think of that too. Wouldn't you rather them on their own property than at the municipal here and coming in and using the washroom? It's not easy to move because I've dealt with that situation. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that,
So do I want encampments on somebody's property? 100% no. That's gone too far for me.
yeah, or on municipal.
Oh, I don't,
or-
hopefully,
Yeah,
in
anywhere.
the right world, there'd be no encampments.
Yes, that's right, that's right.
But, again, I just come back to, even the minimum size, if we're gonna permit bunkies and we can find the right wording and it's for the right purposes. It doesn't have, like, an 8x8 will hold a couple of bunk beds for the grandkids, like, you know what I mean, like, it's. Like, where's that balance for me, right, like, so you wanna build a little,
Our building
Front
officials
playhouse.
have been saying that they think the smallest house you could possibly build to meet the code, because you need a separate washroom outside of your kitchen. There's like a certain angle that stairs have to be and a certain distance between the steps. However, it mixes it up.
Yeah.
200 square feet.
And we're not
which
talking.
interestingly, a properly designed trailer, you can, if it was insulated properly.
Right.
Has the bathroom, the shower, the bed, the kitchen, right, so, right.
I think that's part of the housing summit and the whole housing plan that we kind of want to work on, right?
Yeah.
It comes into that.
It's hard, you know, what was easily done yesterday is so hard to do today.
Absolutely.
My kids,
Lessons learned, I guess.
Lessons learned and people taking it. to
no,
the
I'm
streams.
glad I grew up when I did. I didn't have all the rules like kids have today.
I think there was rules, just nobody drove around. That was too far for me.
No, I'm not
Gonna
talking.
put the horse been way too long there.
I'm not building
Oh, no,
rules, I'm talking, growing up.
4.4.12, I have to look it up. Maybe, member Paquette knows. Know that section of property that's way at the end of, Shields Point? It's like a piece of property, it's either been donated to the township or,
It's being sold right now, is it?
no, it's beyond that, it's like right in behind Bay Street, kind of,
Oh, you're talking about like McLaren's.
right? Was it donated to the township, was it?
Is that the property from the McLaren's?
McLaren's, that's,
Right.
yeah.
Well, there is property, donated to the Conservation Authority. And then there's an area, the roadway,
Okay,
the road is still in the name of the McLaren's. And the estate. And they tried to do something with it one time. They tried to give it to the Conservation Authority when I was the mayor the last time. Tried to give it to the Conservation Authority, and we said, all we'd have to do is the legal fees part of it. And Mrs. McLaren was still alive at the time. And they didn't want it, Conservation Authority didn't want it, but it's in there in limbo, and it's in the name of the estate. And it's never been transferred out. There's only one member left of that family, and he's not really interested in doing anything. Cause I spoke to him one day and he said it wasn't interested in giving it. So I don't know, it'll just stay there in limbo and nobody's responsible for it. It's private, you know? So
okay,
it'll stay there.
we'll leave it there.
I don't know how you remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Holy cow. The history you have, the knowledge of history you have is unbelievable for our township. My goodness.
Thank you. I've been here a long time.
Yeah.
4.4.4.3. I can't even remember what that was about.
I think we asked a question, but they're saying it's an existing policy,
Okay,
so they're just kind of clarifying. Do we want to change it? Do we not want to change it? Or we could just leave it the way it is.
I don't have a copy in front of me. What is it? Which one is it? 1.4.3.
this means a seasonal residential development cannot occur in the RLS. It's in the FES policy for the recreational area of the OP, which may or may not include lands in the RLS. We have not made any changes regarding this policy for the recreational area nor the RLS zone within the zoning bylaw. So basically it goes back to zoning.
So this means that seasonal rental cannot occur?
So
Isn't there a lot of houses
The
in that area?
policy is where new and existing lots in the recreational area front on existing public road, which is maintained on 4.4.4.3. It's 4.4. Yes. So where new and existing lots in the recreation area front on existing public road, which is maintained by the township on a year-round basis, a single-family dwelling will be permitted. A permitted use without an amendment to the official plan or implementing zoning bylaw, provided that the lots are serviced by hydro. Provisions have been made for garbage removal, fire protection, and other emergency services. The lot has an acceptable source of potable water, and the applicant obtains a septic system. And the question was, does this mean that seasonal and residential development cannot occur in the RLS? Most of the RLS is private property.
Well,
So
that's
this is
at a township.
private
maintained
road.
Township road,
Right,
right,
so they're saying this is an in-effect policy for the recreation recreational area of the OP, which may or may not include land zoned RLS. We have not made any changes regarding this policy for the recreational area. So is if the township would like to lessen restrictions for seasonal residential development, we could add policy to the recreational area. And provisions for the RLS zone to state only that seasonal dwellings are permitted on existing private roads, on existing lots of record, or on seasonally maintained roads.
Yeah, because currently the entire recreational area is the RLS almost.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's already permanent homes,
Right.
like lots.
Yeah.
So, should we allow seasonal and permanent?
Well, I think that's, what that is saying is that they're not allowed residents without being on a township maintained road.
It's a pretty standard policy, right? This goes back to, if you remember the conversation, there were 3 years that the municipal act actually allowed for permanent homes to be built on private roads. And then they changed the municipal act back to not allowing them on private roads. Because you don't have the same services. So this is saying that you can have a single family dwelling if you have fire, if you have hydro, if you use all these parameters on here. But typically, like right now, the municipal act doesn't allow for permanent homes to
What,
be
how do I
on.
find that? That clause,
We'll try to.
seriously, I've asked about 3 times, I cannot find it where it states that.
So
It's something with like the Russell Christie, Russell,
JL is proposing to add and make it,
they're
No, I think-
asking.
There, JL Richards didn't change the policy, but this committee had the question to clarify, is this what that policy means? And they're saying, yes, that's what it means.
okay,
So can we change that it can be permanent and or recreational? Because it would exist with and there's not that many vacant lots around anyways, that it would affect the township in any way, being seasonal or recreational. That, can we put either or?
I think we're gonna get clarification.
I'll get back to you.
And Mike, I don't know about anybody else, if we're all in favor that if it's already recreational, what's one or more for the remaining lots? To make them and the tax
they
base
can
is
have-
higher,
They can have
yeah, but your tax base is better,
assessments higher.
yeah, so it's to a benefit. Have I sold you?
You've been listening.
I think
listen.
first we would have
Yeah.
to clarify whether it's permitted.
Yeah.
Like generally that's permitted legally.
So what is everybody else, legal non-conforming?
All the seasonal are legal non-conforming, it's the permanent houses. Cause they don't have fire protection, we can't get in.
We do have fire protection, use come in.
On a private road.
Yeah. Yeah, so everybody has hydro,
Don't tell her that.
Yeah, like now we have a whole other problem.
I'm a rural girl. Yes.
well, if there's another issue there, then our taxes will definitely be lower then.
But that's
But-
part of it, if I can, that's part of it, because the assessment's higher because it's typically a waterfront property. And that has nothing to do with services, it's just the assessment on the location of the property, so. Those, if we just get it on, our taxes don't change no matter what your investment, we need so much money. So that's part of it, where if you're on a if you're living there permanently, you want garbage collection, you want fire, you want, like, we don't do garbage collection because
Yeah,
far more reasonable for a private enterprise, to support the local than for us to do it, but you do, if you're permanently there, you want more services.
no, I've been there permanently for 30 years and I haven't asked for any more service and been very self-sufficient. And so is everybody else. So, like, say somebody's recently built $1 million home, you're saying that they won't be able to get fire protection?
Well, Currently, we do that.
Yeah.
I'll look into it. We have agreements in place. Currently, we do that.
Because that's gonna be, oh my goodness.
Don't panic about that.
Yeah, I need to
Please,
sleep,
please don't
I need
panic
to
about it.
sleep.
If they go in, they go in.
So can,
This part
okay,
will err on the side of caution there, and
Yeah.
we'll err on the side of safety, they'll be going in,
Yeah,
if that's what they're currently doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
and so we will look into that.
Yes, I
the
wrote down that
lots that
firstly,
are
how legal it
remaining,
is.
That any couple of remaining lots
Yeah.
could build a permanent home.
Okay. First, we'll look about the legality of the needing to be on a township road or maintained road.
How many more do we have? One page or one?
Four things.
Okay, because we're approaching 3 on that, and these poor people have not even had a break yet, so I'm hoping we can wrap up soon.
Okay, how do we recognize lakefront building pollution? For example, changing the look of the waterfront as well as ensuring adjacent homeowner views. So we asked JL Richards, how do we do that? Like, we sometimes get complaints that we're allowing the lake to develop too many boathouses. etc. So now it doesn't look like lake anymore, it looks like a resort. The township could consider recreational carrying capacity approach, which calculates the number of users that can be accommodated on the surface of the lake for recreation based on the size of the lake. Number of the units surrounding the lake. Permitted, oh, I'm on the wrong spot now, I don't have page numbers. 5.1.7.9.
We already have, we already have, limits, right? Like the certain special zones have, maximums on how many lots you can create, right?
Yeah,
So what we've
Boathouses?
we're talking about like
What they're proposing, saying-
building pollution on the
Yeah.
waterfront.
and with regards to like the waterfront, that's, is not handled by, the conservation authority?
Yes, they just, but however, the conservation authority just says, yes, you may build something here, or no, you may not build something here due to the flooding, like they don't
Yeah,
want you
or the
have
tree root,
loss.
yeah,
We're kind of more saying, how do we prevent the lake being consumed by boathouses and, you know, you drive past someone's house, it's no longer a lake anymore,
Well, that was a marina.
right? Every lot.
So this section is the general development policies of Lake Nolfenty, Lake Talon and. Bay. And number 9 is maintenance of the natural vegetation buffer may be undertaken for the. Felling and or removal of dead trees, replanting of trees, shrubs or flowers, and the clearance of noxious weeds.
They're saying that we could just adjust it in the zoning bylaw and restrict the size of docks and boathouses to limit accessory recreational use of the lake from residential waterfront.
Every waterfront lot should have
A dock.
dock and boat.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna be-
Any ever allowed one?
Well, that's the thing, if my neighbor's allowed one, why would I?
Well, I can be, like, I've been on RB for over 40 years. And there hasn't been one boathouse even built. It's the same, I think there's 2 and they've been there like probably 50 years. There has not, so I don't know if North Bay Mattawa didn't allow it or
Yeah, they're the
People
ones that
don't
permit
like
the
it.
building.
or people don't like, the view of a boathouse. But even on Lake Talon, on the main lake, you can count how, I don't even know. You could count the boathouses on one hand that exist
So here's
and
the,
nothing new.
yeah, so here's the question,
Right.
if everybody on the lake decided this year to build a boathouse, would you have an issue?
Oh, I don't like them either. They spoil my.
Yeah, that's the
lemon
question though,
coffee.
right? Are we, so, but there, that's the crux of the question. I know it's currently not happening, but the official plan is to make sure that
It doesn't,
or we either are okay with it. Or it doesn't happen, so we either protect it not happening and we restrict it. Or it's a Wild West, so yeah, I mean, I know in 40 years it hasn't changed, but it doesn't mean that it won't tomorrow,
mhm,
unless we don't permit it, right? So that's the.
So I take the stance that why try to fix a problem that doesn't exist? Because a lot of the time, these shores people don't have water boat houses because there's really. Well, first of all, a lot of these people don't wanna, it's the terrain, but also a lot of people don't want a boathouse because. You know, the people that live out there are the same people as us, they don't wanna look at a boathouse either, right? And they wanna take their boats out every winter and make sure that their boathouse is not crookedy after every 5 winters, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just, Muskoka is different, right? Muskoka is not as yeah, it's terrain, I think, so I don't think we have a problem.
I don't think we have a problem either, and listen, I'm okay to be silent on it because I don't think we have a problem. But just know, like, a part of the municipality's job is to think about the what ifs, right? So what if,
what if it's an airplane hangar for a float plane?
it's fine.
It's fine.
Well, if we have no restrictions, you can, absolutely, it's no different. Yeah,
Well, North Bay Mineral Conservation Authority might have a different say in it, right?
Right, we can let them be the governing body.
Well, you know
It
what,
would
if
be-
one person does it, if one person does it, they will come, that's the problem.
What's that?
If one person does it, it will come,
And everybody else.
yeah, oh, yeah, well, I didn't think we could have one. And the next thing you know, I can kind of see that happen.
Maybe we need to visit that in 10 years.
Yeah, that could be
Sure.
part of the 10-year review.
yeah,
It's not an issue right now, but perhaps if it becomes.
if you get 6 more boathouses on your lake within the 10 years, we'll
We'll review the bond.
And in 10 years, you know, we can talk about the fact that you can't sleep in that boat. Unless it's connected to reception. You have heat.
But in some things, it's so funny, like, if it's
But you
not a
might be able to
problem-
put it on Airbnb if you took the license.
Yeah. You know what, there are some really nice boathouses in Muskoka that are sleepers too. though.
Yeah.
They're-
So you know we're all getting a little punchy. Hey, here's hour 30 in the meeting.
Yeah. Well, I think what people have to look at is, like, say tomorrow, if your neighbor put a boathouse, how would you feel about that?
That's their business.
So you're not concerned about the view, about anything like that?
No, if they paid for their loft, they paid. Are they harming me? No.
Well, some of the docks are closer, like some lots are narrower.
As long as it's on their chunk in front of their property, they can't
Mhm.
start encroaching on yours, but. Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one to start restricting.
Most of them don't own that property. That's saying,
Yeah, but when was the last time we turned down a shore road allowance?
we don't
That's
have,
different.
honestly, there's not a lot of short road allowance purchase.
No, but when was the last time we turned one down?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, anyways,
Uh,
yeah, well, that was for different reasons. Are we ready to move on? Cause I think
Yeah.
we're just gonna say 10 years from now, we'll revisit.
Okay. Next one is about the trailers, which we're working on, so we'll just defer that until the bylaws, on the table. The official plan doesn't say what size a lot, and it says that it's in the zoning bylaw, it doesn't need to be in the official plan, although in East Ferris they do have mention. I don't think it matters if it's in the official plan, because the zoning bylaw is the law, the official plan is just a policy. Does the OP allow plans to be granted consent once again? So after every 10 years, we're trying to see if that's the time you re-trigger at the official plan review. Insurance policies vary based on land use designations. Policies do not have time limits and apply to the original township lot. Once the maximum number of lots have been severed from the original township lot, they cannot be severed further without amendment to the respective official plan policy. I don't know if I agree with that.
General
Oh,
comments,
general comments.
not applicable.
Can you,
I know the surplus is not applicable. Now I read it, I'm like, I think it is.
reread, who's that?
Severance, we asked that does the OP allow for lands to be granted consent again once the plan has been adopted by council? Are they allowed to be severed again? I know, and then I'm like, why did I read that? Now I'm glad I did. And their comment is severance policies vary based on land use designation. Policies do not have time limits and apply to the original township lot. Once the maximum number of lots have been severed from an original township lot, it cannot be severed further without amendment to the respective official plan policies. Are they saying like the entire OP?
Specific policy, yeah, that would be anything that's applicable in the OP for sure.
Yeah. So in 10 years from now, if someone has, you know, maximum. Exceeded their, or not exceeded, but like if they can only use 3 severances and they hit that mark, and in 10 years we allow 2 more, then,
No, it's 5,
yeah.
which it should be 3.
Starts looking like a subdivision.
However, I find just from being in the inside looking in now. I find we restrict ourselves as a municipality for development because we don't.
Otherwise, we create ribbon.
Right, we create ribbon development instead. So, you know, I own 100 acres, I sever off 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, oh, I'm done, I still own 90 acres. That can't be severed anymore, ever, according to that comment, in my opinion.
Listen,
Not severed.
I've
but
questioned this since the beginning.
Subdivision.
Yeah, you could have a plan of subdivision, well, not everybody has enough land to build them. Well, I guess you could sell it, let someone else, make a plan of subdivision then. Anyways, that's, wasn't really part of the comment.
I didn't read it because it was in a,
Right, I'm looking into it anyway.
Okay, great.
Okay, the billing envelope for pre-consultation would be helpful if we predetermine if a consent may occur. Section 710 say policies on mandatory pre-consultation for planning applications. 7.10.3 has been updated to include sketch showing building envelope and zoning requirements. Please advise if the PAC has additional requirements with information at a pre-consultation in mind. Well, we have a pre-consultation. We sort of enact the pre-consultation right now, and the upcoming planning changes proposed will eliminate the requirement for pre-consultation. So we might have to put that in the site plan.
but they did change it based on this comment. They're just asking if you want further.
Further yet.
We only asked for the roofing to be added. They added it. Is there anything between then and now? That we want to have that? Not for me.
No,
There was just one area, and I lost my sticky, where we're talking about so many feet back from shore road lines. And I'm just saying, or as determined in a subdivision agreement. Because some of us have more restrictions in our subdivision agreement than even with the township.
100%.
And sometimes, you know, I know, even with Doug, we sometimes, you know, we mention, oh, yeah, but we got that subdivision agreement, so we have to be back further. So I don't know where that is.
Right, I think that often that gets lost. Admittedly, probably amongst many municipalities, as some of the subdivision agreements are from 1970 or whatever. So that information kind of gets lost and not put into your official plans or zoning. So it would almost be worthy when we do the zoning bylaw to sit down for every special zone that's shown at the back of the zoning bylaw,
Yeah.
right? And go through the entire agreement to ensure that the restrictions are put in place for those.
you created a whole lot of work for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, that-
There's a
that
lot in there
subdivision
already.
agreement, back in Pine Lake area too, not Pine Lake, Dowland Lake, right? Yeah, And there's that quite a few. subdivision is with the province, so
Yeah, with the, but we still had, all the information, I think, went through the township.
Yeah.
Like from the lawyer through the township to MMAH. Yes, so sometimes you get lost trying to even read it because there's like a subdivision agreement and then they didn't keep their end of the deal. I don't think the subdivision went well. Just
So
reading
to
all that.
Gina's point,
Yeah,
I think what you're asking for is an acknowledgement of that within the OP, right? So,
Yeah.
In general, or in accordance with a subdivision.
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
wherever that's appropriate. to put that.
yeah.
That's it.
So, a quick question, so did you speak out in, can you have a short-term rental on a
Occupiable building.
no? No, you're gonna ask that on a private road.
Believe, did we say no to that or yes to that?
We're limiting how many,
Yeah, but, limiting,
Remember the bottles?
Can we
there's-
talk about that kind of stuff, maybe,
Yeah.
those meetings?
yeah, but I'm just asking, because I thought there was a place in the bylaw here
no,
that
no.
stated. Short-term may be permitted on municipal roads maintained year-round. So, and or private road as it is in 1.3.
right, so they're still knowing that we're waiting to see what happens with the STRs. So they're just writing what they,
It's 2, short-term, 3,
Yeah, I'm looking for the,
1.3.
what's the 4.3.4?
It's, sorry,
I'm pretty sure.
4.4.4 recreational area. And then it's item number, 3. And, but in 1.3, it does say on,
I think like once they get our bylaw,
yeah,
then
because
they'll have to
I,
make all the amendments. that
yeah,
are-
because I thought in you even had a township that, or a legal document saying that you can't discriminate.
We're not, and we don't plan on it. It's not gonna be within a zone. I mean, there's going to be no mention of zones,
That's what I thought, because it was already.
residential use.
So it should be changed.
Yes,
Yeah.
when they get the SDR bylaw, then they have to implement that bylaw and the trailer bylaw into the official plan.
Mhm.
They want
They're
to
waiting
implement
on
the
us.
whole thing, they'll just make sure that we have the policies in. Again, this is a
Yeah.
high level policy document, and then we drill down with the other.
I know,
Yeah.
but I want
Yeah.
that area changed as well to reflect it.
No, I got it, yeah.
1.3, okay,
Maybe.
okay, sorry,
Okay,
okay, I'm done.
awesome. And I need a mover and a seconder to move this forward. I'll just look for moving a second and then I'll read it. Moved by member Paquette.
Too tired.
Yeah, seconded by member Poise, yes, I'll move. Whereas the planning advisory committee has reviewed the second draft of the official plan and that any further changes or comments will be made. And that the next draft of the official plan will be presented to council and a public consultation will commence thereafter. All in favor?
That just said it's going to council and then open house?
Correct.
Yeah.
Moved by member Roblowski.
What's that, what am I?
Adjournment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're right there. Seconded by member Langbaum. That
I just can't see anything.
this meeting be adjourned at 9:05 PM. All in favor? Gary, wow, we don't have a lot of meetings, but when we have, they're doozies, aren't they? Holy smokes.
Actually,
After we're done
I
with
have
the-
other things on it.
It's been quick, yeah.
You know what?
Oh, you
It's
got
been
it, so all my
like
phone
10
got-
years.
Oh, yeah, no, it's worth the time.
Some time.
Oh, it is, oh, yeah, absolutely, but. my
Did you sign the amendment?
Thank you.
And I have, did Andre leave something for me to sign?
Yeah. Did you walk there? Sorry.
So. Meetings adjourned.
I am there. Don't think in my hands.